Chapter 1. Heroes don't intimidate people either. Chapter text. Kakachin, said the shy voice of a 5-year-old boy, Izuku Midoriya. He had a tuft of messy green hair, a round face adorned with 8 freckles evenly distributed on each of his puffy cheeks, and large emerald green eyes. What are you doing? Kakin was a boy, also 5 years old, with tousled ash blonde hair, piercing red eyes, and a cruel smile that spread across his face. His eyes narrowed with joy. I only put an outcast in his place, Zuchan. Why? Do you want to go in? You want to come in? Izuku replied, horrified. Yes, I know your gift hasn't shown up yet, but you can still punch, can't you? Kakin asked. Come on. Kakin took Izuku's hand and pulled him to another boy, one with pink hair and orange eyes. This loser's disgusting gift allows him to have extra fingers. When you get a gift, it'll be better than that. So we can both be heroes, Zuchan. Of course, your gift will never be better than mine. But if you don't put this loser in his place now, he'll start to look down on you. So hit it at once. Izuku was now face to face with the boy. Well, not exactly face to face, because the other boy was on his knees, with tears in his eyes. Please don't hurt me. I won't look down on you. I promise. Izuku looked at the pink-haired boy. His lip trembled. He had traces of tears on his pale skin, and his voice trembled as he spoke. This boy was terrified. To Kakin. Of what Kachin could do to him. Of what Kakin wanted Izuku to do to him. Of what Izuku could do. By Izuku. This boy was afraid of Izuku. No. All of this sounded bad louder than present mic. Izuku wanted to be someone who saved people with a smile, like All Might. He didn't want to be the person who put them in danger in the first place. No? That's not what a hero would do. Then Izuku began to move his fist. Kakin smiled, thinking he was going to punch him. As the fist approached the pink-haired boy's face, it opened. Izuku's arm was extended towards the boy, a soft smile on the green-haired boy's face, a reassuring smile, a smile that said, everything is fine because I'm here. Unsure, but convinced that the situation could not get worse, the boy carefully took Izuku's hand and let himself be lifted. Then he ran wildly, as fast as his toddler feet would allow, out of the playground and into the boys' restrooms. Izuku was still smiling as he watched the boy escape. He had saved someone. Although that smile disappeared the instant Izuku turned around and came face to face with a furious Katsuki Bakugo. If Kakachan's quirk wasn't explosions in his palms, Izuku would have sworn smoke was coming out of his ears. Would that even be possible? Izuku thought. His gift is an emitter, and his explosions are ignited externally. But is there a possibility that it could explode from within? That it can self-destruct? Could it explode internally? After all, nitroglycerin sweat starts on the inside before seeping into your glands. Izuku. His murmurs were interrupted by a loud voice. Kakin no longer called him by his name. He had been Zuchan since he had met him, just as Bakugo had always been Kakin to him. Yes, Kakin. Izuku grimaced at how weak his voice came out, but from the way Bakugo looked at him, could you blame him for being scared? What the hell was that? Kakachan's eyes narrowed. What was what, Kakin? Izuku tried. TCH. Don't play dumb, Zuchan. The blonde glared at him with an even stronger look, if possible. His 2 lackeys in the background also glared at Izuku. Thing 1 was a boy with a chubby body and a matching face, shaved and red wings sticking out of his back. Thing 2 also had brown hair and was thin. And I don't know what you're talking about, Kakin, Izuku stammered. You let him go. You even helped him. You were supposed to finish him off. Kakin growled, but his face softened at how shocked Izuku looked. Were you afraid, Zuchan? Izuku didn't trust his voice and chose to nod. We'll have to work on that then. Heroes aren't scared, Zuchan, Katsuki said, patting the boy on the shoulder before leaving. Normally, when Katsuki left, Izuku would follow him. That's how they worked. Katsuki would run out and Izuku would follow them, followed by Thing 1 and Thing 2. Then they marched chanting, "Go ahead, march, here we go, members of the Bakugo agency." But when Bakugo turned his head slightly, only his lackeys were behind him. Confused, Bakugo turned his entire body and found Izuku still stuck to the spot, biting his lower lip nervously and staring at the ground. "Come on, Zuchan. Are you coming or what?" Izuku didn't answer. Kaken rolled his eyes and scratched his face. He then started walking towards Izuku, who was crying. "Zuchan, don't be a crybaby. Heroes don't cry." Kaken chided as if that were a consolation. The moment Izuku opened his mouth, he immediately regretted it. Heroes don't bully people either. Kaken almost took a step back in surprise, but he remembered that being taken by surprise was a weakness and heroes had no weaknesses. "Excuse me?" he asked. "I said." Izuku raised his head and looked Katsuki in the eye as he stood up, his back straight and more confident. "Heroes don't bully people, Kaken." "He was looking down on me." "No, it wasn't." "Well, he was going to." "Why are you so worried that people will look down on you?" "Because I'm the best. And that's why you don't have to worry." They fell into an awkward silence. "You're looking down on me, aren't you?" scoffed Kaken. "And escaped Izuku's lips. "You've looked down on me for too long. Since that day, I fell into the pond. I don't need your help, Zuchan. I don't need your help to be a hero, so don't tell me what a hero does and doesn't do. I don't need your useless help. You're useless. You don't even have a gift yet. Heck, you may never succeed, so don't you dare ever look down on me," Bakugo said. "What are you talking about, Kaken? I'm just saying that's not what a hero does. A hero saves someone with a smile. A hero doesn't hurt people. That's what villains do." "That was exactly what I said incorrectly. You know what I've noticed? You've been holding me back all this time. With all that nonsense about saving people with a smile when you don't have a gift. You've been hanging around me for too long. I can't let them see me with a loser without a gift. I can't let them see me with you. Don't follow me anymore. Pero somos amigos, Kaken. Friends don't call each other villains." "That's not what I said." "But if you want me to be a villain," Kaken ignored Izuku's words, "then I'll be a villain." He pushed Izuku to the ground on his, but as his lackeys began cheering. "Kaken," asked Izuku sheepishly, "if you want such a hero, why don't you try to save yourself?" Kaken's palms glistened with nitroglycerin. "No," Izuku thought. "Kaken is my friend. He wouldn't. He's just angry, but he'd never do that to me. We are best friends. He would never do it, would he?" Boom. Izuku felt his upper body fall backwards as he lay on the ground. Specks of dust filled the air, the left side of his shirt was burning, he had burns on his arm. And as Izuku faded into unconsciousness, the laughter of Katsuki and his lackeys slowly faded. There was one last thing he heard. A moment he would never forget in his life. The moment he realized he was worthless. A fearful one. No Quirk and stupid. An outcast, a loser. How could he save people with a smile if he couldn't save himself? It was a moment that Izuku always returned to in his moments of doubt and low self-esteem. He would even return to this moment in his moments of happiness to remind himself that he didn't deserve to be happy being a loser. How could he be happy being useless? So useless, too. Useless Deku, Kaken spat out. And then Izuku's world went black. "Aizu." In the darkness, Izuku could make out a hesitant voice. "Aizu." The voice called out to him again, and the darkness slowly began to fade. "Doctor, I think he's waking up. Aizu, baby." Izuku let out a groan as he felt a pain in his chest. Suddenly, he could see much more clearly, but not clearly. He made out a green figure at the edge of the room. When he rubbed his eyes, the split second he had them closed was enough for Inko to approach him. Opening his eyes, he discovered that she had rushed towards him, throwing a chair and a stack of papers in the process, so fast that anyone would think she had a quirk of speed. He let out a small growl of pain as she bumped into him, and his shirt immediately soaked in water. "Mom, you're getting my shirt wet," he said quietly. He immediately pulled his arms back from where they were around him and sat on the edge of his, hospital bed? Wow, what had happened to him? A hospital bed. The possibilities were endless. Perhaps he had been in a car accident on his way home from school, although he doesn't remember walking. But if he had hit his head really hard, it wouldn't be unreasonable to suffer a concussion followed by memory loss. Or maybe he had stumbled in the schoolyard. After all, he was very clumsy. Or had he fallen off the slide? Perhaps he had been attacked by a villain. But You have burns on your chest. Your clothes were half burned. Do you remember anything? Any fire-related incidents? Maybe you know someone with a fire quirk? Asked the doctor who had entered, interrupting Izuku's murmur. Izuku scratched his head and began to think. Fire. Explosion. Kaken. Kaken lo lastimo. Someone hurt me, but I'm sure he didn't do it on purpose. Because we are friends. He got angry, but it was all my fault. Izuku assured them at the end. Inko's face darkened. It didn't take a genius to put the pieces together. Izuku had only one friend. Before Izuku and Inko left the hospital, the doctor said that he had something important to discuss. When we were examining you, what was your name, kid? The doctor asked. Izuku Midoriya, he said cheerfully. Thank you for fixing me. No problem, that's what I do. So when we examined Izuku to see if he had any internal problems, we didn't find any. Okay, just a few burns, but nothing serious. However, we discovered that he had a webbed finger. His voice died awkwardly. A webbed finger? Asked Inko. And what does that have to do with it? It overrides his peculiar gene, the doctor decided to say quickly. There was no point in disappointing the child because there was no way anyone could receive this news delicately. Izuku looked as if he had just been slapped in the face. Wait, you mean? Inko was silent, his face as dejected as Izuku's. Being a hero has been his dream for a long time. To have a strong and powerful quirk, but an even stronger and more powerful heart. Saving people with a smile. To be a symbol of hope, like All Might was a symbol of peace. I wanted to be like All Might, or even better. He even had some small notebooks that he called Analysis of Heroes for the Future. What future? That was the question that was on everyone's mind. The doctor smiled sadly at the boy as he thought. What future? What future was left for a child without peculiarities? Not everyone ends up the same. Early. Either they are eliminated by a villain because they couldn't defend themselves, or they are harassed until they can't stand it, or they are attacked out of hate, or they finally get tired of the pitiful or disgusted looks, of being marginalized, or simply ignored, and suddenly whatever is at the bottom of that cliff seems tempting to them. So they jump, or suddenly the contents of that pill bottle seem tempting to them. So they eat them all, or suddenly the trigger of the gun next to their head seems tempting. So they squeeze it. It's sad and unfair, but that's the way the world works. The survival of the fittest. What future? Inko thought. What does my baby's future hold now? My love for him is unconditional, whether he has a gift or not, but that doesn't apply to everyone he meets. And what about his dreams of becoming a hero? What about them? What about that future that is crumbling and cannot help it? Why couldn't I give him my gift? Why? Why? What future? Izuku was also thinking, what future is supposed to await me now? I can't be like All Might without my gift. I'll never be a great hero. Kaken was right. He's better than me. It always has been and always will be. He was right. I have no gift. But All Might says anything is possible, that anyone can be a hero. Doesn't that apply to me too? Mom? She asked with tears streaming down her face. Can I be a hero too, Mom? Can I be like All Might? Inko's heart broke again as he looked into his son's eyes. I had never seen him so desperate. Izuku is so sorry. That was what she meant. That was what I felt. But that wasn't what he needed to hear. And what kind of mother would she be if she destroyed it instead of strengthening it? She chose her next words carefully. There are different types of heroes, Izuku. As rescue heroes and combat heroes, he asked. Yes, but also the heroes who are not great or flashy. The ones you don't see on television every day, he told her. Underground heroes? He asked. Yes, but also nurses, teachers, doctors. They are heroes too. They help people, Inko told him. Just like me, the doctor added to console Izuku. I'm a doctor, and I helped you, didn't I? Yes, you did, Izuku said, wiping away tears quickly and smiling happily. You are my hero. That night, Izuku had difficulty sleeping, tossing and turning in his bed. I don't want to run out of quirks, he muttered quietly. He decided that sleep wasn't on his to-do list, not that night. Getting up and turning the light switch, he looked sadly around his room at All Might posters and other heroes' merchandise. All Might, he said. Even if I don't have any peculiarities, can I be a hero? Can I save people with a smile? Like you? He asked his limited edition almighty poster. Silence. Don't be stupid, he chided himself. Posters don't talk. He kicked the ground with his foot as he walked to his desk and picked up one of his notebooks. Hero analysis for the future was scrawled in messy calligraphy on iron. He turned the pages until he reached the last one. He had reserved a space. Above it said, I. It even had a little drawing of him in a costume that looked too much like All Might's. He sighed miserably as he stared at the blank page that he now knew would remain blank forever. But he didn't tear the page as he was about to. Was it foolish of him to continue to have hope? Midoriya's silent snoring went unheard. I'm home, called Hisashi. Inko smiled. You get home later than usual. I was busy with work. So you said you had something important to tell me, she said, recalling her frantic text messages. He sighed. Seriously, this woman was beautiful, thin, and had nice hair. He was kind and sweet, but sometimes it was too much. And sometimes Hisashi found himself looking for a way out. But he had a son. I had to be there for him when he got hurt at school. Inko explained that Katsuki, Izuku's supposed friend, had used his blasts against him. And it had to be there for him when he got his gift. Hisashi hoped that he would get the breath of fire instead of the faint telekinesis. Inko then went on to explain that Izuku didn't have any quirks. None of his children would be free of peculiarities. Of course, Inko had given him a defective daughter. He knew it was bad news and that he had to leave. But how? Izuku and his mother were sitting at the table, devouring their pancakes. Izuku tried to ignore the pang in his heart at the sight of his father, once again, sitting alone. He could barely see Hisashi. The most I remembered seeing him was about 2 hours. He was always very busy. Izuku was out at school, and when he got home, he was still working. Then, when Izuku went to bed, his father would finally arrive and find him asleep. And when Izuku woke up in the morning hoping to find the black-haired man in the bathroom brushing his teeth, he realized that he was already gone. Izuku choked on a particular bite of pancake when his mother asked him the same question he thought he had managed to avoid. Well, now that you're well-rested, would you like to tell me what happened? Izuku shook his head. Aizu, she frowned. You know you can tell me anything. She stretched out her hand on the table and placed it on his. But I don't want anyone to get in trouble. His voice trembled, tears threatening to flow from his eyes and, in turn, from Inko's eyes as well. Whenever he cried, she cried, and vice versa. Inko once joked that they had a gift called eternal tear ducts, though she wasn't sure the joke had the same humor as it did before now that she officially had no gift. Aizu, it's not your fault if other people get in trouble, Inko assured her. But mommy, it was my fault, she frowned. Tell me what happened. He tried to hide the somber tone of his voice. Did his son have to blame himself for everything? Her self-esteem was so low that how could she not have realized before that this had probably been going on for a while longer? Well, KK Kakin was teaching some kids a lesson dash. A lesson? Yes, he said. Izuka Hippo. It's okay, Izubabi. Take your time, he smiled at her. He said that the boy looked down on him, and he wanted me to hurt him. He told me to beat him. Inko gasped. Had his own son hurt anyone? I should have known that Bakugo would be a bad influence. But I didn't. Inko heaved a sigh of relief. Of course not. Her baby was too pure for that. It wouldn't even hurt a fly. A small part of his brain reminded him that maybe that was another reason why he couldn't be a hero. He couldn't hurt anything, not even a villain. I didn't hurt him, so Kakin turned on me. He called me Deku. He said I was worthless, mommy. He said that he had no gift or use, and that I would never be a hero because I couldn't even save myself. He said he was holding him back and belittling him. And then it hurt me. It blew me up and I fell backwards. Inko didn't even try to hide the anger reflected on his face. Mommy, please don't get Bakugo into trouble. He didn't mean it. It was my fault. That kid he was hurting before you, Inko said as Izuku nodded to show he was listening. Was it his fault that Bakugo hurt him? What? Of course not. Mom, why do you say that? Izuku shrieked. Then why is it your fault that Bakugo hurt you? Inko asked, softening as she spoke to her son gently. Izuku was silent. He opened his mouth several times, daring to speak, but slammed it shut when he realized that he had nothing to say. It's not your fault, Izuku. You are the victim. He hurt you for no reason. It hurt you. Stop defending him. You should be upset with him, angry with him, Inko told him. But mommy, he's my friend, Izuku replied weakly. Really? Do you hurt your friends? Izuku forgot to tell her that he had no one else besides Bakugo. He didn't want her to care about him. I would never hurt a friend. He shook his head violently. Then why does Bakugo hurt you? Asked Inko. Izuku stood still, pondering for a moment before speaking in a voice barely above a whisper. Because he's not my friend. Izuku's tears miraculously stopped, and he seemed to get a little distracted. The memories of him and Katsuki, they were reproducing in his head, and he couldn't believe he hadn't seen them before. The incessant need to be better than others. The subtle discriminatory comments Katsuki made. The violent language he always used and the violent tone that accompanied it. Wanting to look good at the expense of others. The mocking comments that were simply insults. Not caring about anyone but himself. Across the table, Inko used his telekinesis to draw the empty plate to him, then picked it up and went to the kitchen to wash the dishes. He thought he needed some time for himself. In addition, I had some important calls to make. Did you call us here to tell us something important? Inko-chan, shouted Mitsuki, attracting the attention of the other inhabitants of the cafeteria where they were gathered. Masaru put a hand on his wife's shoulder and calmly, and at least quietly compared to Mitsuki, said, What Mitsuki means is that there is an important reason why you called us here, and as much as we like to catch up with you, we just dropped Suki off at school, and we have an important job to attend to, so time is of the essence. Inko nodded. Then I'll get straight to the point. I came here to talk about your troubled son. Excuse me, roared Mitsuki, slapping the table with his hands and vibrating the coffee. Inko grimaced at her friend's outrageous antics. It was no wonder that Bakugo ended like this. But I was only 5 years old. It was not too late for me to change. Problematic? I know Katsuki can be a little troublemaker, but what has made it problematic? Please enlighten us, Masaru said. I'm afraid he's been bullying other kids at school, including mine, Inko said firmly. What? Masaru exclaimed in horror. An abuser? PSSSH. Mitsuki gestured for Inko to leave. Oh, I thought you came to tell us something serious. Masaru and Inko frowned. I know my Suki is a little louder than the others. She inherited it from me. She said as if it was something to be proud of, but that's it. I didn't raise any abusers. He might get a little aggressive, but the boys are boys. I wasn't like that when I was a kid, Masaru said. Yes, but that's why I liked you, Mitsuki said, smiling, leaning toward him. You were different, mysterious, calm, serene, intriguing, intelligent, and handsome. You had it all. Ahem. Inko cleared her throat, not wanting to be the third in contention. Although he admitted that it was amusing to see that Masaru continued to blush at Mitsuki's shameless flattery and flirtations, even when they were married. It was like going back to high school. Most of the high school lovers danced shyly around each other, but Mitsuki had burst into the boys' locker room one day and kissed him senseless. Being direct was fine, but I had really made the message clear. Mitsuki wasn't one to wait, and she sure wasn't going to wait for Masaru to ask her out first, so she'd done it herself. She was also furious when Masaru was the one who proposed to her, because she had also planned to do it first. So, aside from being quite outrageous, what makes you think that our little troublemaker is a real bully? Masaru asked, frowning. The signs are all there, but the most important one is what happened to my Aizu yesterday. He's at my neighbor's house right now, but I can show you a picture of his injuries. Masaru stammered, Injuries? Mitsuki began to deny. Kaken would never hurt Freckle. He loves him very much. They have been friends since they were toys. Don't falsely accuse my son. Where is your evidence? Inko put a phone in Mitsuki's face, and Mitsuki fell silent for the first time in his life. His hands were shaking, with anger, fear, or guilt. Inko didn't know. Slowly, Masaru snatched the phone from Mitsuki, who was squeezing it tightly, and horror soon washed over his face. It looked like he wanted to throw up. He did, Masaru said, although it was not a question. Maisuke, Mitsuki fell silent. We are so sorry. Masaru began. I'm going to beat that kid up when I get home. He will not know what has happened to him. I'll grab him by the ear and give him a good backhand. Masaru put a hand over Mitsuki's mouth and smiled nervously at the people in the shop, looking at them strangely and disgustedly. Mitsuki, I'm not the one to tell anyone how to raise their child, but Katsuki is not the only one to blame for his current behavior. Behavior is learned, but we still have time to correct it. Fix it, mocked Mitsuki. It's not broken. What are you trying to insinuate about my child? What is damaged? Are you making him desperate? Inko buried his head in his arms on the table and let out a low moan. This wasn't going to be as easy as she thought. Inko muttered some things, but they were not heard, for his voice was extinguished with his arm. But Mitsuki and Masaru could barely hear words like be kind, inner voices, counselors, and anger management. A counselor? Do you think Mitsuki needs therapy? What are you trying to say? That you have a mental illness? Mitsuki growled. She grabbed her bag, threw it over her shoulder, and rose sharply from her chair, pulling it back. Mitsuki didn't even bother to lift her chair and stormed out, not even looking at Inko. I'm so sorry, Inko-chan. I'll calm her down and bring her back, Masaru apologized. Inko shook his head. I've already said what I had to say. Masaru picked up the chair Mitsuki had dropped and put it away. Bowing slightly, waving and promising to reach him at some point, Masaru headed to wherever Mitsuki was. Inko took his cup of coffee and took a sip. That could have gone better. He leaned a little more. Although it could have gone much worse. Izuku was having a bad day. Forget about it. Izuku was having a very bad week. Her mother had accepted a new case, which meant she spent most of her time with her neighbor. Her neighbor was friendly and all that, but she was an old woman. There wasn't much to talk about, mostly because I was hard of hearing. So all their conversations were one-sided heroic diatribes. And she didn't have action figures to play with either, and although he could bring his own, the woman on multiple occasions did not look where she was going and stomped on them, breaking them. Oh, and everyone at the school has heard about his situation with the Quirk. Everyone knows it. Before, most people didn't talk to Izuku, not because they didn't like him. In fact, he was nice and many people liked him. But since he followed Bakugo all the time, they were afraid to be with him. But now, he was no longer with Bakugo, but he still had no friends. In fact, his companions avoided him like the plague, as if not having a quirk was a contagious disease. It hurt, but hey, Izuku could handle him. He only needed his notebooks, his mother, and to his father. He said his father hasn't been seen in a whole week. He just stopped coming home, coincidentally after the day Izuku was diagnosed as having no gifts. Inko was very worried and told the police that he was missing. He was asked to go over what had happened that day before his disappearance, and one of those events was Izuku's diagnosis. The police told her things as they were, bluntly. Ma'am, don't you think your husband left because your son has no gifts? Izuku could deal with being excluded from school, but he couldn't deal with it. Dad had been so attentive, so loving. Although he always played the villain while his mother played the civilian when they played the heroes, Izuku was of course the hero. Dad had been with Izuku since he was born, as had most parents, and she had done nothing but take care of him. I told him that I would love him no matter what. But he was gone. And Izuku was 5 years old, but being innocent and being naive were two different things, and it didn't take long for Izuku to realize exactly why his father was gone, especially after overhearing Inko's conversation with the police carefree and uncaring. So Izuku had spent the last week avoiding Katsuki. The boy hadn't been throwing explosions, but Izuku was sure it had more to do with the face that Mitsuki had had to go to school because his son had participated in the illegal use of a gift. However, the boy kept throwing paper balls at the back of his neck, kicking his chair and accidentally bumping into him very hard, tying his shoelaces and calling him Deku instead of his real name. And Izuku was just getting used to having to call Kaken Bakugo. Honestly, Izuku didn't think he would ever get used to it. So Izuku had spent his last week crying and mourning his father's disappearance. However, Inko seemed to be much worse off, immersed in work to avoid facing its devastation. And every day he went through the 5 stages of grief over and over again. It was exhausting. Izuku tried to comfort his mother. He knew she needed him more than he did. And Izuku's annoyance at his father's departure soon turned to anger. How dare she make her mother cry even more than usual? So Izuku spent the week meditating. Inko had told her that she needed a healthy release and that watching All Might videos repeatedly and writing in her notebook didn't count as release. In any case, it was an unhealthy obsession, and Inko only let the hero's worship pass because he was a child. It would pass, wouldn't it? And Inko knew that not having any peculiarities came with difficulties, so he was going to help him as much as possible. This new case would bring him a lot of money, and he had plans. He would pay for weekly private lessons for Izu and martial arts or athletics classes on the weekends so that he would have something to help him in times of danger. Hate crimes could happen anywhere and at any time, and I needed to be as prepared as possible for a person with no quirks. And then the rest of the money would be spent on rent and food. What do you think of Aikido? Inko asked his son as they searched the computer together. There's an Aikido gym nearby. Izuku nodded excitedly. Or judo? Izuku nodded excitedly again. Inko continued to list different forms of martial arts and kept nodding excitedly. You don't care much which one you choose, do you? Inko chuckled as he nodded excitedly. Ah, there is a very nice center called Tatakaisashai Karitsu. That's a mouthful, Izuku said. Inko smiled fondly at her as she rocked in her chair, playing with her almighty figures. Whoosh, POW, Carolina Smash. Inko shook his head at his antics. Izu, he called. Izu. He looked at her and put his dolls on the floor. Yes, Mom. I found a good place where they teach various martial arts. Maybe when we get there they can decide which one suits you best. They have karate, judo. I want to do it all. Izuku clenched his fist in the air. I will be so strong that Kaken will no longer be able to hurt anyone, because I will be there. Inko smiled. At least he no longer aspired to be a true hero and was still happy. She liked to see him happy. She never wanted to see him unhappy. She would do anything to keep him happy. Hello, I'm Midoriya Inko. This is my son Midoriya Izuku. We're here for the test session. Inko smiled at the women who were sitting in the box. Sadly, our only tests today are karate and bojutsu, cane wrestling, and karate, empty-handed wrestling, kicking, defense, arms, and legs. We also have gymnastics. Is it okay with you, or do you prefer to reschedule it to try another day? The woman asked. Inko looked at his son, who was jumping for joy. I don't want to wait. I want to do it now. Please, please, Mommy. Inko looked down at her big puppy eyes. The woman at the cash register exclaimed, Oh. Of course we can do the test today if that's what you want. Izu, he ruffled his hair a little. My name is Ikari Satsuo. I'll be your teacher if you decide to take karate. The man bowed, and Izuku did too. Since this is a test session, I think you should observe the other students first, and then we can start learning some standard poses. The man had a small gray beard and a connected mustache. His hair was scruffy and of medium length, his eyes were. Izuku nodded excitedly and sat down on a bench to watch the other children, all older than him, as they began. Ichi, Ikari called. ICHI. The students repeated as they lined up behind him. The NI, shouted Ikari. NI. The students repeated as they stepped toward the mirror and waved their hands. San. San. Shit. Go. Go. Roku. Roku. Grandma. Nalabi. Hachi. Hachi. They went through this a couple of times before Ikari assigned tasks to his students and divided into groups of their belts. He then walked towards Izuku, who was no longer sitting on the bench, but standing next to his mother and imitating the students. Ichi, and I, San, he muttered in a low voice as he moved his body as best he could to follow the students. Looking forward to it? Come here, little man, I'll teach you how to do it right. Yes, please, Ikari-sensei, Izuku said. Ikari led Izuku to an empty corner of the room. I haven't introduced myself properly, Ikari said. I, Satsuo Ikari, have been learning karate for 7 years and teaching it for 13. Wow, how long? Izuku said admiringly. Yes, I learned quickly, and all thanks to my gift, the battle stance. Seemingly out of nowhere, Izuku took out a notebook and began to write while Akari spoke. My peculiar combat stance allows me to always maintain the correct posture. If I throw a punch, my thumb immediately makes sure I'm not in. When I'm standing, I have my feet flat on the floor, my posture is always perfect, and my legs are always well spread apart. And, are you signing me up? Sorry. I love discovering new quirks and writing about them. They're all great and fascinating. Izuku smiled. Well, in that case, what's yours? Ikari asked. The hand that was writing Izuku hesitated. I don't have one. And then Izuku waited. He waited for Ikari to kick him out of karate class, to tell him that people without a gift couldn't fight, and that he didn't belong there or anywhere. He waited for the insults, the looks of disgust, and the looks of disgust. But there was only silence. Actually, there was silence throughout the room, and everyone was staring at him. He suddenly felt uncomfortable and wanted to run out of the room. Everyone had heard it. Everyone knew that he no longer had peculiarities. They were going to hate him. She ran to her mother and hugged her knees, her lips trembling as tears threatened to spill from her eyes. Hey, what's wrong? Ikari asked. It's okay not to have a gift, little man. That means that when you become a martial arts master, you'll be able to say that you tried even harder than everyone else, he said, approaching where Izuku was still hugging his mother. All the other students comforted and praised him, telling him how strong he was going to be and that he was not inferior to them. And now Izuku was crying, but this time it was tears of happiness. These people believed that they were worth something, that it was not a useless Deku. He couldn't believe it and kept waiting for the other shoe to fall off, but he never did. They didn't care. They didn't care that he didn't have peculiarities. They looked nothing like the children at school. Could it be that maybe a peculiarity wasn't so important? It is not a peculiarity that makes a person, it is the person that makes the peculiarity. And Izuku didn't have any gifts, but he didn't need them. So what you have to do is stay like this, Ikari said. Izuku stood with his legs spread beyond his shoulders. No. Ikari slapped Izuku's leg. You need to move your legs more inward. Keep them in line with your shoulders. Izuku did as Ikari said. Perfect. Now straighten your back. Izuku's back stiffened. Yes, but relax a little. It looks like they put a stick in your ass, little man. A stick in the ass? Aizu, that's a bad word. Inko warned. Izuku laughed. I'm sorry, mommy, but sensei said it first. He pointed a finger at Ikari. The sensei is already an adult, Inko told him, crossing his arms. Me too. Izuku puffed out his chest. Inko sighed. Ikari said, I'm sorry, to Inko, but she simply shook her head to indicate that she was fine. Now, close your hand into a fist. Make sure your thumb isn't tucked in, Ikari said. Now put your hand next to your hip like this. They continued to go through different positions. Now I want you to punch. Twist your arm slightly and stretch it, but not completely. We don't want to force your arm or cause you any injury, Ikari told him. Ikari taught him how to throw a punch, and Izuku imitated him. Perfect. Now we also want to take a step forward and bend the leg. Izuku did as he was told. Now he switches arms. Bring this arm to your hip and strike with that arm and take a step. And shout Ichi, Ikari ordered. Izuku made the move again. ICHI, he shouted. The students cooed to him and heard his adorable scream. Get back to work. You can say ah later. There were some whispers of, but look at his freckles. He's so small. He's beautiful. His adorable Ichi. But the chatter soon died down and everyone went back to their tasks. Ikari looked at his watch. And it's about time. I assume that you will also attend the Bojutsu test. Izuku nodded. Well, I hope to see you next week as a real student, not as someone taking a test. You have drive and skill. You'll be an amazing fighter. Izuku strutted at the praise and smiled at Ikari. Thank you, Ikari-sensei. Then Ikari went to explain the registration process and the different things that karate entails. Here are the forms that need to be filled out. They are not very long. If you could bring them when I come next week. Classes are every Saturday. Your payment already covers the uniform, so we'll have it ready. We just need your size. There is a paper attached to the back of the forms with all the basic postures in case Izuku wants to be a little more independent and start learning some things on his own. I would also suggest that you apply for the gym classes here. If money is an issue, you should know that taking one class here offers you good value for money for another, as you pay less. Being a little more flexible will come in handy for your karate classes and probably for Bojutsu as well if you plan to take them. Although it can be a bit stressful to attend all 3 classes at once, especially since he is so small. But your child is different, very energetic, and quite eccentric. I have no doubt that he will be able to pass all 3 classes. Inko smiled and took the form, then grabbed Izuku's hand. Goodbye, Ikari-san. Goodbye, Ikari-sensei, said Izuku with his hand as he walked out the door with his mother. Good afternoon, young man. My name is Kai Rinchi. I teach Bojutsu and Kenjutsu, fight with a stick and a sword, with respect. It's a pleasure to meet you, little one. Izuku. Midoriya Izuku. Izuku completo. Ah, nice to meet you, little Midoriya. Kai Rinchi said, leaning over to shake his hand. Kai Rinchi, 1.78 was a thin woman. She had silver hair, which hung behind her back like Dutch braids, and pink eyes. His gift was, my gift is called reflexes. I would like to think that it is self-explanatory. Now, let's get started with our lesson. I'll teach you how to use a bow cane first. I just need to find one that's the right size for a kid like you, Midoriya. She was ignored while Midoriya was already doodling in her notebook. She came back and put a cane less than half the size of hers in her hands. Are you right-handed, little Midoriya? Izuku nodded. I want your right hand to be near the tip of the cane, he said, waving his hand. And hold it firmly. Roll your thumb so that it is attached to your forefinger. Izuku did as he was told. Now your left hand is going to go down 3/4 of the stick. Do you understand? Understood, replied Izuku as he waved his hand. Now I want you to bend both knees, but especially the right knee. Now put most of your weight on your right knee, but not all of it. Just lean into it, okay? But keep your back straight. And now tilt the bow cane. Your right hand should be up and your left hand down. You have it natural. Izuku laughed. Thank you, Kai-sensei. Do you want to know why we use this pose? Kai asked him. Izuku nodded. Because it allows for rapid use of both sides of the weapon in rapid succession and pace. What does succession mean? Asked Izuku. When things happen one after the other, Kai added. So like this? Asked Izuku and then demonstrated a bunch of karate strokes he had previously learned, oblivious to Inko recording a video of him proudly with tears in his eyes. I mean, that was really impressive, little Midoriya. How has Ikari-kun managed to teach you so much in just one test session? Kai wondered. Izuku smiled. Ikari-sensei is a very good teacher. And I bet you're a very good student, Kai told him. At the end of the session, Kai Rinchi handed Inko a form and made him promise that his son would start learning Bojutsu because he was simply wonderful and born talented. He also recommended that she buy him a bow cane to practice at home. Then Inko and Izuku went to the next room to do the gymnastics and acrobatics test class, and what they saw left both of them speechless. Beams, swings, mats, posts, benches, trampolines, mini trampolines, mats, stereos, gymnastics holds, mirrors, skill cushions, accessories, training bars, jumping tables, trapezoidal mats. Hey, someone tapped him on the shoulder. He looked and came face to face with a girl a year older than him. He had light brown hair and dark brown eyes. You're the new one, aren't you? She asked. He nodded. I am Midoriya Izuku. He couldn't believe that he was talking to a girl. Hello, Midoriya Izuku. I'm Utsushimi Kami. Nice to meet you, buddy. She winked at me. What is your gift? I don't have any, he sighed. Oh, very nice. Do not worry. Do you want to know what my gift is? Surely you do. My gift is called glamour. Anyway, I hope you'll join our class. You seem so funny. And I love meeting new people. Our class is only for people with good vibes, so you'll fit in perfectly, he said, leaning on his arm. Utsushimi, are you bothering the rookie? I thought I told you to let me the introductions. Your boldness will drive him away. A tall woman approached, thin, somewhat muscular, with black hair pulled back in a bun and turquoise eyes. It reminded Izuku of Mitsuki or, God forbid, Katsuki. Not in his appearance, obviously, but he was screaming and looking like an angry person, just like them. Izuku shuddered. He didn't want his instructor to be like Bakugo. Perhaps he would not accept gymnastics. Hey, young man. Over here. Inko and Izuku approached the cheeky woman. I'm Midoriya Izuku. He held out his hand. The woman shook his hand very tightly. I'm Ito Ayaka. I will be your instructor if you decide to take gym classes. You might think I'm aggressive, and guess what? It's good for discipline and motivation. Not everyone is going to be nice and polite to you, boy. The sooner you know, the better. Not everyone is going to be nice, Izuku thought. Casey Katsuki is living proof. But just because it makes a lot of noise doesn't mean it's bad. I am strict because gymnastics and acrobatics are very delicate sports. I have 5 rules in my class. 1. Pay attention. I won't say anything twice. 2. Follow the rhythm of the music. 3. Always stretch first. 4. Keep your feet on point. And 5. 99% is not enough. Give it 100% or go home. I'm not going to fuck around. His voice could rival present mix. Izuku thought as Kami sarcastically thought from across the room, rolling her eyes. But I'm the one who's scaring him. Oh, and I forgot to introduce you to my coworker. She specializes in acrobats. I'm more of a contemporary dancer. Ito beckoned a short man to come closer. He was 1.62 m tall, had a round and tanned face, brown hair and brown eyes. Hello, young man. I'm Ikabange's Yasha. So they're both loud. Izuku suppressed a grunt. What is your name, little one? Ikabanges asked. My name is Midoriya Izuku, he shouted. Inko pinched the bridge of his nose. Now everyone is screaming, he thought. Wow, what a great voice for such a small man. Ito commented. Very good, Ayaka. Lo sabes, Yasha. Inko decided that his ears could no longer bear this abuse. I'll step aside and watch you teach my Izuku, yes? He then walked to the side of the room and put on his headphones, listening to meditation music, drowning out the screams and shrieks of the children in the background and the screams of his own son fused with those of Ito and Ikabanges. So, what's your quirk, little one? Ikabanges asked. Izuku shouted, I don't have one. Without stuttering or hesitating, without murmuring. He had noticed that the people in that place were really cool, as Kami had said. They would not judge or treat him differently for not having a gift. Why should they? It was nothing to be ashamed of. Bakugo and the children at the school could treat the lack of a gift as a curse, but that didn't mean that Izuku had to do it too. He was going to accept his lack of gift. Not having a gift made him take 10 steps back, but it didn't matter. Izuku was simply going to try 11 times harder. First, I need to know what you can do, Ito said. Can you touch your toes? Izuku shrugged. Then we tested it, so we can find out. Izuku nodded and leaned to the ground to touch his toes. I did it. Yes, you did it, little man. How far does your hand reach behind your back? He reached out a hand and stopped in the middle of his back. That's as far as I can go. Don't worry, it's normal. Not everyone has long arms, commented a child who was passing by to get to his mat. But I do. The boy stretched out his arm and put his thumb right in front of Izuku's face, a friendly gesture. Izuku smiled admiringly. What a cool quirk. I wonder, how far could you stretch so far? Could you rip your arm off? Could you catapult yourself, perhaps? Or maybe. Today, do you want to know my quirk? Ito asked. Yes, hell, shouted Izuku. My quirk is called perfect timing. Not only does it allow me to always be in sync with the music and dance rhythmically, but it also helps me land accurately. Not to mention that I once made it to the kitchen just in time to turn off the stove. Otherwise, my house would have burned down. But I arrived in. Now, let's get back to the subject. Do you know how to do the handstand? No, replied Izuku. Try it anyway. Okay. Izuku gave him a thumb gesture and then rested his hands on the ground. Then he lifted his legs a little, but he collapsed and fell on his face on the mat. You're too slow. You need a boost. Just launch and push. Do one leg at a time if that helps. But damn, hurry up, will you? Ito screamed. Izuku quickly got up and dusted himself off before launching into a handstand that lasted for a second before falling forward and landing on his back. OH. Phew. Not even our mats can save you from that pain. But you have to be strong and persevere. Smile despite the pain. Like All Might. Izuku asked excitedly. Yes. Then Izuku got up again and tried to do the handstand again and again. He didn't get it until Ito helped him by holding his legs. Do not worry. I don't expect you to be able to do the handstand right away, but in time we will achieve it. Now, can you do a cartwheel? I need to know what I'm working with. Izuku did a somersault. His legs were a little bent, and he fell immediately after landing, but he still considered it a victory. Next time, stretch your legs. Izuku did another somersault, but in his attempt to straighten his legs, he simply fell, this time head-on. Okay, I'll teach you how to do it later. Let's go? Do you know how to kick high? Izuku kicked his leg at its highest point, his foot reaching chest height. Try it with the other leg. He did, but the results were the same. Okay, can you do the split? Front or middle, I don't care. Izuku couldn't do either. His legs were bent awkwardly, and he couldn't reach the ground. I'm sorry. Don't be. You shouldn't be perfect, otherwise I wouldn't have anything to teach you. Can you make a bridge now? Izuku tried, but ended up with his knees in the air and him leaning on his elbows. I'll take it as a no. And a somersault? No, don't do a somersault. You sure can't. But I won't know if I don't try. He got up and tried to do a somersault, nearly falling headfirst if Ito hadn't caught him. She looked at him to scold him, but he just smiled back and said, perfect timing. Now that we've established that the only thing you can do is a forward roll, we'll do some basic stretches, said Ito. Izuku nodded. Well, this stretch is called a lunge. So, Aizu, what did you think of the classes? Inko asked. I want to join all of them. All of them, Inko stammered. I don't think I can afford it. Maybe I could ask Hisashi to send money, but I wouldn't want to disturb him on his business trip. Please MOM, asked Izuku with big green eyes and a pout. How could she say no to that? A year ago, Izuku was diagnosed as having no gifts, had lost his best friend and father, and had almost lost hope. But he kept resisting. Because Izuku was not going to allow himself to be a useless Deku. No way. Izuku was going to make a difference. He was now 6 years old and a big boy. And he was going to make the difference. That was what he was doing now, standing once again in front of Bakugo and once again protecting one of his victims. Just because the old witch says I can't hurt you, Deku, doesn't mean I can't hurt the extras. So get out of my way or die, Bakugo shouted. No, Izuku said simply. Excuse me. You're excused. Who do you think you are? No, who do you think you are? Do you go around bragging about being the best? How can you be on top if you stoop so low? Growling T Voya Mutar, Cabron. I don't think Aunt Mitsuki likes that. Well, I don't appreciate you. I don't care. You should die. Die. Bakugo shouted as he pushed Izuku away and lifted the boy behind the green-haired boy. She grabbed him by the neck and stared him straight in the eye. You're not looking at me now, huh? I'm so sorry, Bakugo. Never, never. I will never look down on you again. You sure won't. Not when I'm done with you. Bakugo smiled menacingly, raised his hand, and began to make explosions before remembering that it was an illegal use of gift and that it could ruin his hero career before it began. Although he was sure it wouldn't matter because she was 6 years old, her father had told her and her father never lied. Stop it, Katsuki, shouted Izuku as he kicked Bakugo's knee. Why, little one dash, began Bakugo as he knocked the boy down, surprised by Izuku's kick. But Izuku wasn't done yet. He punched Katsuki quickly on the shoulder, put one leg between his own, and bent it while pushing Katsuki's chest, successfully knocking him down. Deku nerd, squealed Bakugo as Deku fled with the boy Bakugo had been attacking. Bakugo's lackeys offered him their hand, but Katsuki glared at them and threatened them with "Don't look down on me unless you want me to beat you to mush." And then Bakugo got up and tried to find the place to which Deku had also escaped. DKU. Scared? Running away from me? Heroes don't run away. You will never be a hero. The sooner you accept it, the better, Bakugo shouted. Izuku replied from wherever his hiding place was. You won't be a hero either, not with that attitude. Bakugo angrily walked towards where the voice sounded, and a bush flew away. When the smoke cleared, he saw the brown-haired boy shrunk and Izuku covering his ears from the loud bang of Katsuki's explosion. Damn it, Katsuki thought. I wasn't supposed to use my gift. I'll have to threaten them so they don't tell anyone I used it. If you tell anyone that I used my gift, then I will kill you. Do you understand? You've threatened to kill me hundreds of times, Katsuki, and I'm still breathing. Could you explain? Izuku sneered. Oh, I'm going to enjoy beating you up, Dash. Do you know that I told my friend about you? As if you had friends, Dash. And she, Dash. Her? You don't even talk to girls. I spoke with one girl. Her name is Cammy, and she told me that you were a barker and not a biter at all. He's right, you know? The corners of Izuku's lips curled slightly, forming a small smile. Izuku couldn't deny that he quite enjoyed angering Katsuki. It was especially fun to play subtle pranks on him, such as putting gum on his seat or covering his desk with sticky notes. At first, Izuku was reluctant because he considered it a bad deed, but in gym class, Cammy had assured him that he deserved it, that if the teachers didn't force Bakugo to face the consequences, then he should. After all, heroes always take the law into their own hands. Despite this, Izuku wouldn't deny that he felt a little scared when looking at Katsuki's red and deranged eyes. Katsuki. Katsuki, Bakugo sneered in a high-pitched voice. There is the Deku I know. Small, weak and stuttering. And I thought you had become braver. TSK. Izuku frowned. You suck. No insults to me. You are an insult to yourself. What is that supposed to mean? Izuku simply made a raspberry when Kakin dropped it on the ground and left. Thank you for saving me, said the little brunette. No problem. What kind of hero would I be if I didn't? Izuku had to remind himself that he was the only person in the world who believed he could be a hero. The boy laughed. Thank you, Midoriya. Midoriya smiled. He had saved someone from Bakugo again. Phew, I wish I had the gift of Bakugo. Why did Katsuki receive such a good gift? He was just a bully. He didn't deserve it. Yes. If Izuku had had that gift, he would have put it to excellent use. To be an elite hero, maybe even surpass All Might if possible. But no. The universe simply had to give it to Bakugo out of all people. Why couldn't Izuku be Katsuki instead? Izuku watched as Bakugo Katsuki slowly disappeared. The blonde hair, the black shirt, the red shorts, and the white sneakers. Miming Midoriya, La Morina Chillo. His stutter is even worse than mine, Izuku thought as he turned to look at the boy. Yes? Do you look a bit like Bakugo? He said timidly. Excuse me, asked Izuku, genuinely confused and honestly a little offended. Your hair just changed. Now he's blonde. And your eyes are red and your clothes too. Your color palette matches Bakugo's. What are you talking about? Asked Izuku. The boy got up and walked to the bathroom, followed by Izuku. Then Izuku looked at himself in the mirror. Her hair was still the same, messy and curly, but now it was also blonde. His face lacked his usual freckles, but instead his skin looked a little rougher. His eyes were the same shape and size except that the iris was red and seemed to contain a ferocity that Izuku's eyes had never had before. His white shirt that said shirt was now plain and black, but it was still the same size and shape. Her blue jeans were now red. And his blue shoes were white. Dio, I have a quirk. Frankly, you shouldn't even have a quirk because of your webbed pinky finger, a doctor said, lifting his glasses, but you've defied all odds because, in fact, you have a quirk. Izuku screamed and howled as Inko frantically tried to calm him down. Aizu, relax, okay, baby? Inko couldn't hide her joy. She herself wanted to jump up and down, run around the room, and kiss every person she could meet. I was so happy. Her baby had a quirk. He knew how difficult life was for the minority without peculiarities. I knew that they were barely 25 years old for suicide, murder, hate crimes. And if they lived past that age, it's not like they could get a job, or at least a good one, no matter their qualifications. If you didn't have quirks, colleges didn't want you. If you didn't have quirks, employers didn't want you. If you didn't have quirks, nobody wanted you. No one. But Isa had a quirk, and Inko was delighted. Maybe. Maybe he could pursue his old dream of being a hero. Inko didn't like the idea of her doing the hero's job, not because she didn't think she could do it, but because, like any mother, she was afraid of it. It is dangerous, unpredictable, violent, and corrupt work. But he could be a hero, now that he has a gift, right? Thought Inko. And it seemed that Izu had the same idea. So, can I be a hero? Asked Izuku. No, the doctor said simply. Izuku's face slumped like a sack of stones, and Inko's sweet smile slowly faded into a furious look. How dare anyone shatter their child's dreams again? And didn't they even have the common sense to delicately disappoint him? What guts this woman has. Around the room, small objects vibrated gently, practically imperceptible. The objects came just a little closer to where Inko was sitting, furious. His arm, which circled Izuku's shoulder, trembled. What do you mean, no? Inko asked, trying to keep his voice up. Apologies, Ms. Midoriya. I just tell it like it is, the woman said undeterred. I'm Mrs. Midoriya, and you can't say those things like that. Can't I? Not without explaining it, Inko said with his eyes, gritting his teeth. Meanwhile, Izuku sobbed, his face sinking into his stomach as he stained his shirt with tears. My gift is the analysis of peculiarities. I knew all about his quirk and yours from the moment you walked into my office. Its peculiarity is merely cosmetic. I don't mean it's a weak quirk, it's great if you like aesthetics, but it's weak for combat and can't save anyone. Personally, I would have labeled it as color scheme, since that's basically the only thing it can do, match someone's color palette. But that doesn't take into account that it can copy mutations, but not the peculiarities that come with them. Which explains why its peculiarity is called mirror coincidence. The ability to match someone's mutations and outward appearance, including their clothing. He is not identical to the person who copies, but he equals him, explained the doctor. Inko sighed. Is there more? He asked passively aggressively, tears of anger streaming into the corners of his eyes. If you want to know how to activate your gift, you need to have a 100% accurate idea of what the person you're matching with at the moment looks like. So, you could activate it from memory, but it would be best if you were looking at that person and had seen every aspect of that person, front and back. But a photo would also work if the photo was an accurate representation of what the person currently looked like. For example, if she copied me from this photo, she was holding a photo of herself with red hair and a white shirt. It wouldn't work because I currently have black dyed hair and the shirt is pink. But if I used this photo, she was holding a full-length photo of herself from that same day. It would work because I still look like that. You can even have her try it now if you want, Ms. Midoriya. Izu, do you dare? Do you want to give it a try? Inko asked his son, who was crying. Sure, I will. Izuku sobbed and cried again as he stared at the photo with blurred vision. Inko wiped her moist eyes with a handkerchief. When his vision cleared, he focused on the image and tried to imagine himself with his black hair, his cool blue eyes, and his pink shirt, his black pants, and his black shoes. It didn't work. I don't think he's in the right state of mind right now, the doctor said. Inko's lips curled in disgust at the woman's nonchalant tone. How could she sit back and settle for destroying her son's dreams? How could he be so indifferent? What a bitch. I have a question. How did you come to have a gift like this? My gift is telekinesis and my husband's is spitting fire. Hypothetically, it should have some kind of pyrokinesis. Ironically, that quirk would have been powerful enough to make him a hero. Izuku sobbed loudly. Could I have had an H-hero quirk? If looks killed, the look Inko was giving this doctor for telling his son such irrelevant information would cause the black-haired woman to fall 6 feet underground. You could, but you don't. Bad luck, said the doctor as he picked up some files. If you want instructions on how to register your peculiarity in the legal system, you can ask at reception. You'll be guided to a quirk advisor. Unfortunately, I have an appointment. I hope they leave you standing, Inko thought. The doctor left the room as Izuku looked at his mother, his lower lip trembling and tears streaming down his face. He looked utterly shattered again, as when he discovered he had no gift. But even so, he had persevered, Perhaps deep down he knew that he had a gift, and Inko understood that during all this time, he had never given up hope of being a hero. Even now, there was still a bit of hope in his eyes. Lost hope, false hope. "Is that true, Mommy?" asked Izuku in a whisper. "Can't I be a hero? Is it true, Mommy?" What a hypocrite I am, Inko thought, blaming other people for crushing their dreams. "I'm so sorry, Izuku," his mother shouted as she hugged him even tighter and cried on his shoulder. Izuku felt as if a knife had been stabbed into him. He stared dazed at the wall in front of him, lost in his thoughts, in his self-loathing, in his insecurities. He thought he had exhausted all his tears, but there were even more bubbling up on the surface. He kept staring at the wall. He could hardly think clearly. Many thoughts were turning in his head, but one stood out above all. "Mom, that's not what I needed to hear." "Well, there goes that theory," Izuku muttered as he looked at one of his old notebooks from when he was 4 years old. "I had a lot of grammatical and spelling errors, and the sentences didn't flow at all, but somehow I still managed to figure it all out. Probably because the 6-year-old Izuku and the 4-year-old weren't that different." Who am I kidding? They are so different. Izuku, 4, is an adorable ball of energy. He is Kaken's best friend and dreams of being like All Might. Wait until he turns 5 and gets his gift so that he and Kaken can be pro heroes 1 and 2, respectively. Izuku, 4, has goals, hopes, and dreams. A loving family. A father who is barely present for work, but still has time to take care of himself, and a mother who also has a busy job, but is always there for him. Izuku, 6, is a ball of sadness. It lacks life. He is Katsuki's enemy and desperately dreams of obtaining a different gift. He waits for the day when, I don't know, maybe someone will come along and say they can give him a gift. That's ridiculous. As if donations could be transmitted. And Izuku is more alone than ever. No one can understand him. No one can be there for him properly. His father is away on a business trip, though Izuku is smart for a 6-year-old. And although she knows that her mother is pretending that her father is going to return, she does not know if she is faking it for her sake or hers. But for her sake she will play along. He will pretend that his father did not leave just because his son did not have any gifts. What happened to unconditional love? At least we know who gets the award for Irresponsible Father of the Year. And his mother, she's doing the best she can. But her best effort isn't enough, and Izuku feels selfish and ungrateful for thinking like that. But what else is she supposed to think? He read the notebook. Detailed plans of how he would dismember Bakugo limb by limb using his mother's telekinesis if he had it. A good theory, but one that would never come true. Wait a minute, did Izuku 4 write this? I guess Kaken was also an idiot in the past. Oh, and there's also a post about how it would burn the skin of Kaken and I would feed it to him. The pond ducks in your area. It's probably not normal for a 4-year-old to write that, but we've already established that Izuku isn't normal. Whatever, Izuku muttered, throwing the notebook in the trash and plopping down on his bed in his pajamas all night with a humph. Why me, he thought. Why me? And somehow she found her way back to her comfort video. Look at yourself smiling like the world is perfect, Izuku said angrily as he wanted All Might to save the people from the fire. No, I shouldn't think like that. It's All Might's fault that the world is like this. He's one of the few genuine people out there, no? There are so many genuine people, like the ones in my weekend classes, and I wouldn't want anything to happen to them. He took his bow staff and began to move with it. I'm going to be a hero. Officer Suki, I have the suspect in my sights. Do I stand up to him? Change, a police officer said as he hurried through the store, observing a brown-haired woman in a white shirt and green skirt walking at a brisk pace. Yes, you should participate, shouted Officer Suki on the other end of the walkie-talkie. Received, the first mate said as he reached into the taser pocket and prepared to use it once no one was in the way. But the mall was very busy. So busy that he hardly saw the brown-haired woman blend into the crowd and disappear from sight. She slipped around a corner, and he quickly followed. The woman, as she walked, began to remove her brunette wig to reveal her blonde hair. He then unbuttoned his white shirt to reveal a black crop top. Afterward, She unzipped a hidden zipper at the back of her fitted green skirt to reveal a black miniskirt. He removed his contact lenses. His eyes changed from blue to green. All while you walk. The police officer then followed her to the corner and grabbed her roughly by the shoulder, spun her around, and taser in hand, ready to strike. "Excuse me?" the horrified woman asked. I'm so sorry, ma'am. I thought it was someone else. He was chasing a suspect at the mall, and he came here. Excuse me." The policeman stammered, ashamed and guilty. He put his taser in his pocket and asked the woman, "Did you see anyone coming? Brown hair? I think she had blue eyes. I couldn't see her well from afar. Oh, and I was wearing a white shirt and a green skirt by any chance?" the woman asked, feigning indifference. "Yes," the policeman exclaimed. "She went that way." The blonde woman pointed to the left. "Thank you so much for your service. And I'm sorry once again," he said and ran off in that direction, shouting that they were going to raise his salary today for having caught the whore. "A whore?" the blonde woman asked, looking at the man as his figure disappeared. Then the camera moved, and the blonde woman looked directly at her, as if addressing the audience. "Hey," she shrugged. "I've been called worse." Then the video stopped. Izuku watched the music video on the tablet that Kami had put on his face. "Why are you showing me this?" Izuku asked. "It's a movie from the pre-Quirk era," said Kami as if it were an explanation. Izuku remained silent, motioning for him to continue. "It's just like your new Quirk," Kami exclaimed joyfully. "He changed his appearance so easily. As far as I know, your hair was never really green and you only copied your mom's." What? "No. I got my gift recently. I was born like this." "I was just kidding, Zuzu." Kami rolled her eyes. "But think of all the adventures we could have with your gift and mine. Glamour and mirror match. We would be an unstoppable duo, a force to be reckoned with. I mean, do you know how easy it would be to shoplift?" "We're not shoplifting," Izuku interrupted. "Oh, you're not funny at all, brother. But, hypothetically, think about it. We could steal." "No." Kami pouted. "Okay, so be it." Izuku stuck out his tongue. "Whatever," Kami replied as she continued to stretch. It was Sunday, and Izuku was in his weekly gym class. "So, you're finally ready to try a backflip without the trampoline?" Kami asked. "No. What if I hit my head? Do I fall on my back and break my spine? Did I dislocate my elbow? Do I crack my neck or—" "Stop mumbling," Kami said and patted him on the back. "And no one is going to ask you to do somersaults on the field, stupid. We have mats everywhere and moats full of soft stuffed animals. You've been here for a year. You know about this, so go for it." 8 years later. Since they're all juniors, it's time for them to think seriously about their future. At this, the students' chatter stopped, but Kugu pretended to be bored, but his interest was piqued, even while sitting with his hands behind his head and feet on the desk, and Izuku was already paying attention as usual. "I'll hand out leaflets for your future plans, but—" Bakugu raised an eyebrow. "You're all planning to enter the hero course, right?" the professor finished. All the students burst into cheers, shouts, and boos as they showed off their quirks. Bakugu simply sneered as Izuku looked at all the peculiarities in amazement, his eyes flashing, his hands itching for his notebook as he faced an internal battle. Either he listened to the teacher or he wrote about his classmates' peculiarity. Why not both? It turns out that Izuku is very good at multitasking. He keeps his ear attentive as he excitedly writes in his book while the pen slides over the paper. Yes, you all have wonderful quirks, but using your powers in school is against the rules and the law, the teacher warned with a funny smile on his face. Katsuki sneered even harder this time, tilting his chair even further back. "Hey, teacher." His favorite contorted to crack a mischievous smile. "Don't mess with the rest of these extras. I'm on my way to the top, while they would be lucky working as assistants to some second-rate criminal." The class erupted, voicing their outrage loudly as Izuku moaned and covered his ears. And Bakugu? He just laughed. If I remember correctly, the professor spoke again and the students took it as a sign to shut up. They wanted to go to the UA, right? Izuku took his hands off his head and cheered up, but the master was looking at Bakugu. "You probably don't remember that I'm applying to the AU?" 2. Izuku sighed. Of course not. No one ever remembers the boy with the gift of Deku. All the students began to talk again. No one was surprised that Bakugo aspired to the AU. Still, it was an interesting topic of conversation. UA was the best hero school in Japan and had the lowest acceptance rate for the hero course, in addition to many others. UA was for the best, the smartest, the most powerful, the most capable, strong, talented. UA was the best of the best of the best. Of course I'm going to teach at the UA. Who do you take me for? Because of a kind of outcast? Bakugo smiled. Yes, you go to the UA and… The professor scanned the room with his eyes before looking at Izuku. A grim expression was drawn on his face. What about you, Midoriya? Silence. A pregnant silence. A sepulchral silence. A pin could be heard. The talk ceased instantly, and everyone fell silent. As if they were waiting for the final joke. I mean, it had to be a joke, right? Izuku always insisted on wanting to be a hero, but he would have realized that it was impossible by now, wouldn't he? Look, preschool and elementary school were fine for Izuku. It was the same thing every day. Waking up, eating, going to school, learning, saving some poor child from Bakugo, befriending him, scaring him with eerie murmurs, and repeating. In high school, it was a little different. No one in his preschool or elementary school had shown him displeasure. They were young. Children are usually kinder, more open-minded. No one cared that Izuku didn't have a gift. They didn't care that he had one. And he was also weak. High school was a little different. Izuku had no friends, not for lack of effort. It wasn't even their eerie murmurs this time. In short, no one wanted to get along with Bakugo. Some hated Izuku because Bakugo hated him and they were his lackeys. Some were neutral because they had only spoken to him in passing. And some were friendly, but not friends of an Izuku. They wanted to be, but sometimes Izuku was too clumsy, or there was no time to hang out because Izuku preferred to watch a hero fight or go to karate, or maybe he was Bakugo again. He wouldn't let people get close to Izuku. A girl once said that it was because he had a crush on Izuku and wanted to have him all to himself. That same day, he returned home with a burn on his arm. And the girls, there were only about 2 of us, who had been in love with Izuku were too ashamed of their crush to do anything about it. So high school was pretty lonely. Although sometimes Izuku made the class laugh with his witty comments, so was that? Not to mention, the bullies were worse. Izuku never really got bullied, just because he wouldn't let himself be bullied. But that doesn't mean the insults didn't affect him from time to time. Yes, they did. And the worst thing was pity. He wants to be a hero. How sad. His gift is of no use to him. DKU. Katsuki jumped up from his desk and slammed his palms against Izuku's, ready to light up. I don't think Aunt Mitsuki will be amused to find another desk in her account. This will be the 4th one you've blown up, just this month, Izuku said nonchalantly. Some laughed slyly, but Bakugo silenced them with a murderous look. So yes, Bakugo's lackeys teased Izuku every day, but being friends with Kami had taught him to be confident. Kami. He was already gone. She had moved house. But Izuku was happy for her, because she had entered the hero course at some school. Of course, they were still in touch. As if Izuku was going to let go of his only friend because of a small thing like distance. You think you're funny, huh, Deku? Bakugo snapped. Humor is subjective, Izuku muttered. You can't enter UA with a cosmetic quirk, said one of Bakugo's lackeys. Wow, I didn't know the extras had lines. Izuku raised an eyebrow. Hey, only I can call them extras. Bakugo shouted in Izuku's face as he set fire to the table. Izuku jumped back in his chair, grabbing his notebook and office supplies just in time. The professor sighed and started writing an email on his computer when he was actually looking for an excuse not to deal with Bakugo. Did Bakugo use his gift? I didn't see it. I was writing an email. Come on, Midoriya. Do you really think that everyone can enter the UA? A boy asked. He says the one who has the ability to lengthen his neck. What are you, a giraffe? Izuku bit his tongue to keep from saying that. Don't think like that, Izuku. He chided himself. All quirks are good, even yours. Yes, a quirk like that was probably more useful to the hero than mirror match. But, unbeknownst to anyone except his mother, he had been practicing gymnastics, bojutsu, and karate since he was 5 years old. I was sure that I would be a better hero then. What was his name? Thought Izuku. I guess they are extras. He reflected, don't think like that. That's how abusers think. Don't talk to him. Only I talk to the damn Deku. Bakugo shrieked. Where was he now, huh, Deku? He asked, grabbing the notebook. Izuku's playful, mocking smile disappeared when he realized what Bakugo was about to do. He could defend his classmates from Bakugo's wrath, but somehow, protecting their prized possession was more difficult. Listen, Deku, I am not going to repeat it. I'm going to be the only one to get out of this pit and into UA. You understand? Katsuki's hand lit up and the notebook burned. Izuku JDO. Katsuki, he shouted. Bakugo rolled his eyes and went to the window when the bell rang and the students came out. Some stayed to watch the show, Bakugo's lackeys. She'll tell Aunt Mitsuki, Izuku warned. I don't care, Katsuki said, hiding her fear nonchalantly. Give it back to me, Izuku said, trying to keep his voice calm, trying to look impassive, although the tears of rage in his eyes belied it. And why should I? Bakugo looked at the burnt doorway. The words were barely legible, but Bakugo managed to say, hero analysis for the future? Pathetic. As if someone with a quirk like yours could be a hero. Izuku tried to take the notebook out of Bakugo's hands, but Bakugo moved it higher. You're useless, Deku. No wonder Dad left you. Or is it? Did Dad leave you because you had a useless gift, and now you want to prove him wrong and be a hero? I'm telling you, Daddy Trouble is not a good name for a hero. I'm sure you like the sound of your own voice, Katsuki, Izuku sneered. Better than your whining voice, Deku. And then he dropped the book out the window. Izuku could only watch as his book descended. He turned around to give Katsuki a good talk, but found that he was already at the door of the classroom, ready to leave. Izuku's cold gaze didn't bother Katsuki. Your gift of dyeing your hair is useless. If you want to be a hero so badly, perhaps you should throw yourself from the roof of this building and pray for a strong gift in your next life. Izuku's jaw dropped. He was no longer angry, just sad. Tears rolling down her face. She sobbed and wiped her eyes with the back of her sleeve, but more tears fell. He left the school with his head down, his backpack hanging from his arms and his back hunched over. He shrank into himself, dejected. He found his notebook. But I didn't pick it up. Maybe you can jump off the roof of this building. The words bounced off the walls of Izuku's head, echoing. Did Bakugo care so little about life? Did she hate him so much? Was Bakugo really so deranged and so lost? He walked aimlessly, without even looking where he was going, but it was certainly not his home. It was actually an empty alley. Well, it was empty until Izuku walked in. And until the sewer cover opened. And what the fuck is that? Living Baba? Izuku didn't realize it until the stench hit him in the face. Ugh, yuck, he muttered and looked up. A medium-sized invisibility cloak, said a deep, gurgling voice. All Izuku could see was a cloudy, wet, slimy green substance, large and menacing. Do not worry. I'm going to take possession of your body. Calm down. It will only hurt for about 45 seconds. You'll soon feel better. And then Izuku knew what it was. Even with his feet glued to the ground, his body frozen, paralyzed, he knew what it was. Attacked by a villain. He was buried in it, a pile of mud, which seeped through his nose and mouth. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't breathe. Oh my God. He's dying. It's really happening. And what about Mom, Cammy? And what about his dream of becoming a hero? But what good is a hero who can't save himself? A hero who punches and scratches a villain and still suffocates him. Helpless. Useless. Just a useless little Deku. A nobody. Izuku hated himself for thinking that, but the swan's leap from the roof would probably have been less painful. If Izuku's mouth wasn't filled to the brim with squirming and writhing slime, he would have let out a humorless laugh. His conscience was weakening, and the pain was almost gone. Numbness takes its place. Is this how it ends? It's not like Mirror Match can do anything. Only a strong Quirk could defeat this villain. And in his last moments of consciousness, he thought he was already dead because there was no way he was really here, alive, and in the flesh. I. No, no, no. He was in another city. Izuku was his #1 fan. I would have known if. I am. He was it? There was no way, but he was here. And then everything went black. He felt a tap on his cheek and slowly opened his eyes. Good. I'm glad you're okay, said a loud voice. Wait, you're okay, right? Izuku's eyes snapped open and there, in front of him, was Triple L Might. Izuku staggered backwards in surprise as tears slowly rolled down his face. All Might, he asked again, assuring himself. And, indeed, the figure in front of him, in all his powerful glory, large, muscular, blonde and wide. All Might, Japan's #1 hero. I'm sorry I got you involved in my fight with the villain. I made a mistake. It won't happen again, he said, patting the bottle in his pocket that now contained the muddy villain. Izuku looked on in disbelief, his jaw almost hitting the ground. Can everyone? Izuku shouted. Somehow they ended up on a rooftop. Even if I have a useless gift, I want to be a hero. I want to save people with a smile. To be a symbol of hope. Like you. You are the symbol of peace. I want to be someone that people can trust, someone that people can believe in. I want to inspire people. But I don't know if I can do it with a gift as weak as mine. Izuku fell silent, refusing to look All Might in the eye. A useless gift? There is no such thing. Izuku perked up. Hey, what's your gift, boy? I can change the color of my hair and eyes to match someone's appearance. I can also copy their mutations, but not their peculiarities, Izuku demonstrated, dyeing her eyes blue and her hair blonde, just like All Might's. If All Might wasn't All Might, his smile would have disappeared. But All Might always smiles. So he smiled, even as he shattered Izuku's dreams. Kid, being a hero, it's a dangerous job. You have to be able to protect yourself and others, and you can't do it, not with that gift. Oh, was all Izuku managed to say. The atmosphere was so dense that it could be cut with a knife, so tense that it was suffocating. I must go, All Might said, feeling the smoke begin to clear from him. No, I can't reveal my secret, not to a poor boy I met on the street. And so he went. He left Izuku completely alone in that building. And those words of Bakugo came to my mind again. Maybe take a dip. I was wandering aimlessly again. You'd think I'd learned my lesson and walk straight home. He was in such a mood that not even seeing a group of heroes encouraged him. But on second thought, what were so many heroes doing in that area? And why were there so many people? A camera crew? And why did his explosions shake the whole block? Izuku rushed to the scene and tried to jump to see above the crowd, but he was still too short. He pushed his way through the crowd, as politely as possible, and found himself in front. The mud villain, Izuku gasped quietly. Did I think All Might had caught him? It's my fault. I should have distracted him. I have to fix this, but I can't. I can't protect anyone, not with my gift. Izuku decided to stay and observe what happened. Perhaps she could talk to the victim after she was rescued, tell her that she was not alone, that Izuku also knew what it was like to be suffocated by that monstrous thing. Another explosion was heard, and that's when Izuku's eyes focused, zooming in on the victim. No, Izuku muttered in horror. A strand of blonde hair protruded, and another explosion was unleashed. Katsuki. Izuku's legs were moving before he even decided if he wanted them. He could hear the heroes yelling at him to back off, to stay behind. But just because they were willing to do nothing didn't mean that Izuku was also willing to do nothing. Truth be told, Izuku somehow understood his logic. What could someone with a gift like him do? Hell, he had practically no gifts. He had fought the same monster that held Bakugo captive. If Bakugo, praised by all the teachers, admired by his classmates, the ground he walked on was revered by everyone in the school. If Bakugo, with his incredible gift, his incredible potential, and who everyone was telling him would be a hero, he couldn't defeat that monster. What could someone like Izuku do? There wasn't much I could do, but there were a lot of things I couldn't do. He couldn't just stand there and watch Katsuki die. Although it wasn't like changing his appearance was going to save anyone. Actually, it wasn't. Not by a long shot. No. But I had to try. I had to try? Why the heroes couldn't? No, they stood on the sidelines uselessly, and yet he was the Deku. No, they were polishing themselves for the cameras and pretending to be worried heroes. Because if they were really that worried, they would have helped. Damn it. I don't have the right gift for this, they said. We will have to wait for help, they said. The victim is defending himself quite well. He will be fine in a few moments, they said. And they said and said, but there was nothing to do. Bakugu's blood would be on his hands. No, it was wrong to say it. Bakugu's blood would be on the mud villain's hands and only on his hands. If the villain of the mud had hands. It wasn't like that, not really. But he had eyes. Izuku felt as if the world was moving in slow motion. It wasn't like that, but it sure looked like it. Each step he took felt heavier than the last. His feet hit the ground. Boom, boom, boom. It was actually his heart pounding. He had eyes. Izuku took the backpack off his shoulder and opened it, desperately searching for something sharp. When he found nothing, he decided to throw away the backpack. Its contents spilled, but at least the bag had hit the target. The corner of the bag had landed right in the villain's eye. Then Izuku went through the villain's other eye. Imagine hitting me through me, not towards me, Ikari-sensei had said in one of his karate lessons. Hitting you? Asked Izuku. Like crossing water. Imagine an ocean and you want to cross it to see the waves. Is this some kind of meditation? I've heard of something similar. You imagine an ocean or a white space, something quiet. It helps with many things. Relieves stress, controls quirks. I didn't know that he helped with fights. You're muttering again. I'm sorry, sensei. I know it's creepy. It's not scary, it's just not the time. He murmurs later, fight now. Hit me. Izuku's hands were sweaty with anxiety and tingling with anticipation as Izuku raised his arm back and then struck. And there was an explosion. Except he wasn't from Bakugu. It had escaped Izuku, and perhaps the pressure was driving him crazy, making him hallucinate, because his gift was the reflex, not the explosion. Bakugu's gift was explosions. His gift was the ability to reflect someone. There was no way he could imitate peculiarities. He could not have overlooked it. The doctor who analyzed him as a young man could not have overlooked him. It made his quirk seem so useless, so undignified, that he definitely couldn't have overlooked it. And Izuku was sure that he knew his own peculiarity. He knew everything about it. As self-centered as it seemed, he had an entire notebook dedicated to himself. What? What? Bakuga seemed to finally notice. What are you doing here, Deku? Even when Izuku was trying to save him, he still found a way to be an idiot. Izuku would be lying if he said that he hasn't considered simply leaving Katsuki and leaving it to him. But Izuku pushed those spiteful thoughts out of his mind. Because at the time, I wasn't looking at Katsuki. I was looking at a guy who just needed help, who was too afraid to admit it, who had so many expectations on his shoulders and so many problematic ideas instilled. This wasn't Katsuki, this was Kaken. And I couldn't let you die, Kaken. Something in Bakugu's eyes changed, almost as if they were softening. He hasn't called me Kaken for ages, Katsuki thought. And it was a heartfelt thought until Katsuki remembered the memories he associated with that nickname. Midoriya, 4, extended her hand to her best friend. Bakugu, 4, slapped his hand away and said, I don't need your help, Zuchan. And Bakugu hated the part of him that he really considered the stupid Deku's help. He wasn't a damn damsel in distress. He could take care of himself. He wouldn't get help from anyone, let alone Deku. But what if Deku really wanted to help? No, that was a ridiculous thought because Deku always looked at him with contempt, didn't he? When he offered him his hand after the fall of Bakugu, when he stood in the way of Bakugu and his victims, when he beat Bakugu in the school exams, although half the time it was Bakugu who passed him, so they were tied. And even now, he now looked down on Bakugu. As if Bakugu was a frail idiot who couldn't take care of himself. 14-year-old Bakugu sneered. I don't need your help. You damn Deku. Stop despairing me. Bakugu's mouth filled with mud again. I admired you, Kaken, Izuku thought. I never looked down on you. Izuku hadn't realized it yet, but his hair had already turned blonde, his eyes were red, and he was sweating profusely. Stop exploding all over the place. Kaken, you have to target their weak points. But Katsuki couldn't, not from where he was, in the mud. It was impossible to aim at the creature's eyes from that angle. Then Izuku would do it for him. The creature was getting nervous, especially when recognizing Izuku as its previous victim. It's you again. I guess I'll have to finish them both. Izuku tried to reach the creature's eye, but the villain already knew this trick. It wasn't going to work unless Izuku had the element of surprise. But this came as a surprise to him and to himself. He was in the air, explosions were coming out of his hands, giving him flight. Oh my god, Izuku gasped. Was he really using Kaken's quirk? This time there was no debate about it. This wasn't a figment of his imagination, it wasn't because it felt so real. And if it wasn't for the dire situation Izuku was in, he'd probably be laughing like a child from the thrill of flying. He finally understood why Katsuki got in trouble for using a gift illegally so often. Who wouldn't want to use such a gift constantly? Unfortunately, this newfound power didn't give Izuku an immediate, infinite, and instinctive understanding of Bakuga's quirk, but luckily that notebook wasn't just for heroes. Izuku knew how to use Bakuga's quirk. He continued to make explosions until he flew and his foot was at the level of the villain's eyes. He kicked and bounced, doing a backflip and landing on the ground. Shocked, the villain momentarily lost his grip on Bakugo. And one moment was all Izuku needed. He jumped through a small space right next to where Kaken was being held. Izuku jumped up, grabbed Kaken's neck, and then pushed him away, knocking Kaken to the ground. They had succeeded. The villain no longer had them. Izuku and Katsuki fell to the ground. Katsuki stopped rolling first and landed on his back, then Izuku landed a few steps away on his forehead. What do you think of that useless gift? Kaken, asked Izuku, raising his eyebrows. Kaken snorted, but it sounded suspiciously like laughter. Zip it. From Ku. Katsuki's chest flailed, slowly rising and falling. Izuku laughed breathlessly. Then, Detroit SMAASH. We're safe, Izuku sighed. Katsuki couldn't believe that Deku had saved him. What a blow to his ego. This idiot would probably think they were friends now, as if a traumatic experience could spark a friendship. He couldn't. And Katsuki couldn't believe that he had allowed himself to be helped by Deku. But Kaken decided that he was just having a bad day, that any other day he could have been saved without the help of Deku and his. Had Deku used Kaken's gift? That's what it looked like, but maybe Katsuki was a little confused because of the villain's attack. But deep down, Katsuki knew she needed the help, and deep down she appreciated it. So for once, just this once, I would let it go. Yes, you idiot, Katsuki said and turned his head to the side to look at Deku. We are safe. Oh, you two boys, you guys are very strong. Your quirks are amazing. Do you have the same quirks? Are you brothers? Do you have the ability to copy peculiarities? You guys were amazing out there. You saved him. How heroic of you, little man. As a reward for saving him, you can get my autograph. By this time, Katsuki had already done TCH and left, completely ignoring the heroes who were praising him and Midoriya. Midoriya wasn't gone yet. Not yet, but I wished I had. Normally, he would be ecstatic to be in front of so many heroes, and the fact that everyone told him how cool he was as well. How much did they admire him? Normally, Midoriya would have fainted. But right now, he was probably going to burst a blood vessel from the way his head was throbbing in anger. Izuku knew it was rude, but maybe these heroes deserved to be rude because he couldn't help but laugh in their faces. I can't believe it, he laughed. The heroes fell silent, and Midoriya remained completely oblivious to the cameras that were focused on him. He suddenly stopped laughing, and his face became serious. He held back a grimace at the words he was about to say, but it was necessary to say them, and no one else was going to do it, so he did it. How audacious are you, heroes, to praise me for doing your job? He asked, as if he wasn't sure what had really happened, giving them a chance to correct him if he was wrong. Because perhaps he had misunderstood the situation and the heroes had not stood idly by, ready to watch Katsuki die. Excuse me, asked MT Lady. They are excused. I'm sorry, I don't want to be rude and I should probably calm down. But seriously, you guys are the heroes here. I'm just a 14-year-old kid who's still in high school. And I had to step in and risk my life because you guys couldn't do your job. Our quirks weren't right for the job, Kamui Woods tried. Yes, mine doesn't either, Izuku shouted. How can the ability to copy gifts fight a monster like that? Huh. The gift I copied was Explosion, the same one that Bakugo used to defend himself from the villain, but it didn't work for him or me. What did work was to use my brain. You are all too dependent on your gifts. The villain had eyes, an obvious weakness, and I'm being told that none of you thought about that. They're telling me that their heroes were outsmarted by a high school student. You're telling me that you, the heroes, would rather sit and look good than save someone. But isn't that what being a hero is all about? Save people. I don't care if they think they can't help. I didn't think I could either, but I tried. And that's why Bakugo is still alive. So don't praise me for doing your job. Be ashamed of yourselves. Midoriya despised them. The heroes looked bewildered and remained in an awkward silence until Midoriya left. Get those cameras off my face, demanded MT Lady when she realized that the entire ordeal had been recorded in its entirety. Izuku returned home with a new pride. He did it. He had silenced the heroes. He had taught them a lesson. He had saved Bakugo, someone who didn't deserve to be saved by Midoriya, someone who had tormented him as much as he could, which wasn't much, since Midoriya always fought back. But that didn't mean Midoriya didn't come home with burns sometimes. Likewise, Bakugo would come home with a black eye. Maybe their rivalry wasn't as one-sided as Midoriya had originally thought. Maybe he liked the idea of being better than Bakugo to prove him wrong after all these years. After all, he had a gift enhancement. Izuku still didn't quite understand what had happened, but he had analyzed so many other people's peculiarities that he was sure he would have no trouble analyzing his own. He was so lost in thought as he walked home without a backpack that he didn't notice a huge figure that landed right in front of him until they announced their entrance with a loud, "I'm here." Midoriya should have been jumping for joy, but instead she wanted to cry. What? Was All Might there to remind him again that he couldn't be a hero? That All Might was the one who actually saved Bakugo, not him? That Midoriya was hopeless and his gift was still useless? Are you always this extra? Midoriya asked, trying to appear indifferent, trying to pretend that he didn't care that his idol was there, belittling him. Oh well, stammered All Might. Why are you here? Snapped Izuku. It wasn't his intention, but can he be blamed for being in a bad mood? And before that he was in a very good mood too, but All Might had to bring him down from that height. I'm sorry, Almighty said, for a lot of things, but mostly for what I said to you on the rooftop of that building. I was wrong. You can be a hero. Because I have a more powerful gift now? Asked Izuku irritably. All Might didn't think he could be a hero until his gift improved, and now he wanted to change his mind. Huh, what a laugh. No, because it is not the gift that creates the user, but the user who creates the gift. I didn't know until you showed it to me, All Might said sincerely. What? Izuku asked, dropping to his knees, confused and admiration, hope, anxiety. Izuku doesn't know what caused his knees to buckle, but now he was looking at his idol with teary eyes. Your gift does not determine who you are. It cannot make you useless or powerful or good or bad. What matters is what you do with it. Your gift cannot determine whether you can be a hero or not. It is up to you to determine it. Are you saying that I can also become a hero? Squawked Izuku. No. Izuku paled, and All Might chuckled. I should clarify it. Izuku tilted his head slightly, beckoning All Might to continue. You can't become a hero, because you already are, Almighty said, holding out his hand to the boy. Do you really mean that? Izuku asked, disbelief evident in his tone as he hesitantly took All Might's hand and stood up. You ran without thinking. It may sound reckless, but you ran because you saw someone in danger. You didn't even think about yourself. If anything, that's heroic, All Might said. And, having said that, I must apologize again, because I did nothing. But you did it. It was the other heroes who didn't. Izuku shouted. And just then, All Might considered revealing his secret. Tell the boy the truth, that he, in his slim form, had also stood by doing nothing, until he saw a young man do his job. All Might smiled sadly. Yes, but I was late. When I realized that the mud villain had escaped, I thought I'd go back to find him and fight him. Then there's no reason to apologize. I'm not done. Izuku closed his mouth tightly. I thought about it, but I didn't. He was tired, and yes, believe it or not, the peace symbol gets tired. All Mighty smiled shyly. So I didn't come back until I saw the news and saw you out there, struggling. You inspired me. You? I inspired. Izuku shrieked. I couldn't believe my ears. He had inspired his inspiration. All Might, his favorite hero, the reason he wanted to be a hero. Izuku vaguely remembered the moment when he decided to be like All Might. It was probably that video he always came back to for comfort. It was a strange comfort video, but Izuku didn't care. It was All Might's, saving people from a fire. And after watching that video, Izuku knew he had to be like him. Soon after, he was playing hero with his mother, dressed in an almighty jumpsuit. She hid under the covers and pretended she needed help, while Izuku walked through the door with her arms in triumph raised and shouted in a high-pitched voice and a beaming smile, "Here I am." And boy was he here now. He was in front of his idol, and he had succeeded. I was here, right where I wanted to be, in front of his hero, and with a new hope. I could really do it. Everyone believed he was in denial when he said he could be a hero. Izuku himself sometimes thought he was deceiving himself, but it was here, and he was able to do it. Although it still didn't seem real at all. All Might, All Might, had seen it on the news and was inspired to act. Wait, did you say I was on the news? Izuku said, his pupils shrinking and his eyes open. Yes, All Might said slowly, confused. How was it possible that the boy didn't know he was going to be on the news? He had fought a real villain. My God, my MOM is going to panic. You must be very worried. Izuku kept shouting at such a speed that All Might could barely make out the words. I'm sorry, I have to go. Izuku ran out, but then ran back. Can I take a picture of you? You mean me? Asked All Might. Yes, shouted Izuku. They took a picture, but before Izuku could run away again, All Might put a hand on the boy's shoulder. Anything could? Asked Izuku, turning to look at the giant. I can't give it to him now, thought All Might. He's skinny, not so much. He seems to exercise from time to time, perhaps some extracurricular sport, but his body wouldn't take it, and he has just developed a new aspect of his gift. I can't give him another, not yet, but I have to help him on his way to becoming a hero, even bigger than me. Okay, I have a proposal for you, young. All Might paused awkwardly. Izuku stood there, confused, before he realized, Midoriya, he added. Midoriya, Izuku. Of course. Ahem. All Might coughed to clear his throat. Young Midoriya, I guess you plan to go to the UA. It is the closest and best hero school in Japan. Izuku nodded excitedly. As you best know, you can't rely on your gift alone to become a hero. All Might continued with Izuku hanging on his every word. Of course, you still need to learn more about your gift. We'll work on that dash. Us? Muttered Izuku, but All Might didn't hear him as he continued. And you're clearly a bright kid, so we don't need to work on your intelligence, although we could still work on strategy, All Mighty said. Izuku didn't understand why All Might said, we, but nodded anyway. And they'll teach you to fight dash. Bojutsu, gymnastics, karate, Izuku said, I do them all. Oh, All Mighty said, well, in that case, the only thing we really need to work on is your body. Excuse me. I should work on my phrasing. Agreed. What I mean is you're a little thin. Izuku attempted to hide his offense as he tilted his head to the side, beckoning All Might to continue. Well, we'll fix it. Of course I'm very busy, but I have a coach in my agency, and I could assign it to you. Will I be able to work with one of All Might's coaches? Here, All Might handed Izuku a small piece of paper containing an address and a time. Izuku looked at the newspaper and read it with amazement and excitement. However, upon looking up, All Might was no longer there, and there was a bit of smoke. Huh. It was all Izuku could say before he left, and pretty much hopping all the way home. Aizu? Asked Inko when he heard the door of the apartment open. Seeing him standing there in the doorway, with a smile on his face and no serious bruises, he ran to him and hugged him tightly. You're fine. Mom, I can't breathe, he gasped. She let go of him and then stood with her arms crossed over his chubby body. Don't scare me like that again. Call me when these things happen, Izu. Don't you think I care about you? I'm sorry, Mom, Izuku sighed. Enough is enough. We are celebrating. Katsudan. Izuku applauded. But that's not all. Inko stumbled around the house, looking for something. When he found it, he showed it to him proudly. I know it's a little sloppy, but I did it as soon as I saw you on the news. Izuku's eyes filled with tears as he looked at the green hero costume his mother offered him. Don't you like it? He asked sadly. I love MOM. He hugged her tightly. She believes in me, Izuku thought with satisfaction. Now I will support you, as I should have done before. I will make amends for my mistakes, for not having told you earlier that you could do it. I should have seen it from the beginning. Nothing can stop my baby from being a hero. And somewhere on a completely different side of the city, a black-haired boy of Izuku's age was sitting, watching a video over and over again. Are you telling me that heroes prefer to sit and look pretty rather than save someone? That's exactly what I did when my friend needed help, the boy thought. Isn't that what it means to be a hero? Save people. That's what it's all about. And that's why I'll be a hero too. If this boy my age can do it, so can I. I don't care if you think you can't help. I didn't think I could either, but I tried. Thank you. For you, whoever you are, I have to try. No matter my quirk, it's not flashy or impressive, but I have to try. The boy looked in the mirror and decided that tomorrow he would buy a bottle of red hair dye. A week later, Midoriya was at Bakuga's table. Izuku sat next to his mother, opposite him, Katsuki, and opposite her, Masaru. And at the end of the table, in the head seat, Mitsuki. Masaru and Inko were chatting about unimportant things, talking about their jobs and things like that, with Mitsuki making the occasional comment. When Mitsuki wasn't doing this, he would shoot Katsuki warning glances to make sure he didn't go overboard. The fateful day, 9 years ago, when Inko sat at the coffee table with her and her husband, still on her mind. She couldn't believe her son had done something like that, so she proposed that they continue with their monthly dinners. Since childhood, it was a tradition to have dinner monthly with the Bakugo for Izuku and Katsuki to play and the adults to catch up. But now, it seemed more like a way to prove that Katsuki wasn't harassing him and that Izuku wasn't going to report him and ruin his future. It was awkward, to say the least. For his mother's sake, Izuku pretended that he and Katsuki got along, though he refused to use the name Kaken. Kaken was reserved for an ambitious but kind boy, like Katsuki. And Katsuki was content to call him Izuku instead of Deku, although sometimes he made mistakes. You know, customs are hard to get rid of. It was exhausting to keep that performance going for his parents. Katsuki did it so that he would not be sent to therapy, and Izuku so that his mother would not worry. Besides, he had no reason to worry. Izuku had it under control anyway. I wasn't completely alone at school, although I changed groups of friends every week. I always had a place to sit at lunchtime. I always had at least one friend. And yes, there were cruel comments, but Izuku could handle them and fight back. And if someone threw a punch at him, Izuku dodged it, thanks to his Tatakaisashite Karitsu classes. He tried to avoid hurting people whenever he could, but if he had to defend himself instead of dodging, he did, especially if he defended someone else instead of himself. So Izuku's school life was still a mess, but it didn't have to worry Inko, although sometimes he received notes in his locker telling him that he should. How's school going? Masaru asked them both. Come on, you know the answer. As always, I'm the first in the class. Katsuki roared. Masaru and Inko grimaced as Mitsuki said. That's my boy. We had a math test recently. It was pretty hard dash. Please, DK Izuku. That test was easy. Maybe you're too stupid to do it. Inko narrowed suspiciously as he called his son stupid, and Mitsuki leaned over the table to hit his son on the head. So what did you get in the exam? Izuku asked. Get 98%. Best in class. He gave Izuku a sneer. What he hadn't noticed was the mischievous twinkle in Izuku's eyes, but he did notice the triumphant smile that began to spread on his face. It turns out I got 99%, Izuku said innocently, and when no one else was looking, he may or may not have sent Katsuki a smile and a wink. He had actually scored 98.5% on the exam, but that rounds up to 99%, so who cares? Honestly, it was fun for Izuku to tease Katsuki while his parents were present. I knew I probably shouldn't enjoy it, but why not? Didn't Katsuki at least deserve it? Izuku knew he had the upper hand here with the presence of Katsuki's parents. I would enjoy this while it lasted, because I knew it would be the little stuttering Deku as soon as they went back to school. Well, I got 100% on the literature test, Katsuki replied. Well done, so do I, Izuku smiled. You're lying. The teacher said he was the first in the class. Yes, tied first. Izuku, you bastard dash. Suki, shouted Mitsuki incredibly loudly. Didn't you have something to say to Izuku? He gritted his teeth. Katsuki groaned. Thank you for saving me. Boom. Thank you for pulling me out of the mud. Villain, though I could have handled it without you stealing my damn dictionary. Really, Izuku thought dryly. He can't even admit that I saved him. Disappointed, but not surprised. You're welcome, Izuku replied politely. Ouch. Katsuki kicked it under the table. Izuku kicked him back. Stop kicking me. You started it. Oh God, Masaru said quietly, dropping his head in his arms. Katsuki, stop that, Mitsuki shouted. I thought he said things were getting better between him and Katsuki. Inko shook his head. Sadly, I think that's what it looks like, Masaru said. For the rest of the dinner, Inko helped Mitsuki wash the dishes. Izuku and Masaru cleaned the table, while Katsuki was sitting on the couch throwing a tantrum. Fucking Deku, who do you think you are? Walking into my house and trying to outdo myself. Trying to make me look bad in front of Dad and the old witch. I'll show you. Morning at school. During lunch or recess, probably both. And I'm the one who mumbles in a creepy way, Izuku said, plopping down on the couch next to Katsuki. Don't talk to me, you fucking Deku, Katsuki complained. Okay, we can be silent, Izuku said, sitting cross-legged next to Katsuki. Just a few seconds of silence. Katsuki was already dying. Of course, loud people hate silence. Why did you do it? Asked Katsuki. Do what? Izuku replied. You know what I'm talking about. Why? Because it was dash. Don't come at me with that, it's the right thing to do nonsense. Tell me the truth, it's because you wanted to look better than me, right? You use my quirk better than I do on TV. You show off. You're trying to make me look bad. Katsuki, I don't. Even calling me by that pathetic nickname you haven't used since we were 5 years old. Trying to put me down and make me look stupid. Well, it's not going to work, Deku. Keep that in mind, it's not going to work. You better have applied for a place at other universities because you are not going to enter the UA. You can't become a hero with borrowed powers. Your gift is still as useless as ever, so you have to copy others. My blonde hair didn't even fit you. TCH. At this point, Izuku was convinced that Katsuki was talking more to himself than to Izuku, so he sat down and got lost in his own thoughts and ignoring the boy next to him. Thoughts about tonight. The night he would finally meet All Might's coach. I thought you'd have given up on your trash dream by now. A hopeless coward. Like you could be half as good as All Might. But I? I'm going to be a lot better than All Might. Japan's #1 hero? I'm going to be the #1 hero of the damn world, and you'll see me come out on top while you're stuck at the bottom. I can't wait to meet All Might's coach. I wonder what it will look like. He sure is tall and muscular. I wonder what his gift is. I need to remember to keep a notebook. Perhaps his gift is of increasing strength. Or he might have a normal gift, unrelated to strength, but he still has a stupid complexion. And I'm going to be muscular too. I will be strong. And I'll be a good hero. Right where you belong. I will surpass you, our colleagues, everyone. And I wonder why he wants to stay on Dagoba Beach. The last time I saw him, the beach was full of trash, but that's why no one goes around. It's great. It gives me free rein to practice my gift. Are you listening to me? The truth is that I have not had the opportunity to practice the new development of my gift. I can copy appearances and gifts, but is my gift exactly the same as theirs? After all, my appearance is not exactly the same. Just, it matches, Izuku muttered aloud. Hey, Katsuki shouted. What if I end up with a watered-down version of your gift? Can I use a gift I don't understand? Do I have to know the person to use their gift and appearance? If I copy a picture of someone from the past, will I get what their gift looked like back then? If I copy the gift of someone current, can I do what their current gift does? Could he do his special moves without practicing? Can I copy any gifts or only those of people I have met? Are there donations that are too complex or strong for you to use? DKU. Could I copy All Might's Kyujar dash? Izuku, his mother called. What? He asked, annoyed that his train of thought had been interrupted. We're leaving. Already. It's not that I'm complaining. It's okay, Mom. I'm coming. Izuku checked his phone. 2 minutes had passed, and the coach had not yet arrived. Since he arrived at the beach, he had only seen miles and miles of trash and a skinny, blonde guy in the distance. All Might. Did he lie? No, All Might wouldn't lie, would he? Was this all a practical joke? A practical joke for Izuku? To make him believe that he had a chance to be a hero? Or had All Might changed his mind and decided that Izuku wasn't worth it? That he wouldn't send his coach after all? Izuku hadn't realized when he started running, but he did. And soon he found himself standing behind the blonde, about to ask him if he'd seen anyone out there who could be his trainer. Izuku tapped the man on the arm. The man turned, and Izuku gasped. His eyes were black, almost inert, except for the blue iris. The man was extremely thin and wore his clothes too loose. His head was thin and his hair stood out like a lion's mane. Before Izuku could ask the man if he had seen anyone, the man spoke first. Ah, you must be my apprentice. Huh? Asked Izuku foolishly. I'm Yagi Tashinori. All Might said I had someone to train me, the man said, reaching out to shake it. Izuku, surprised, stammered. Yes, yes. This is me. Midoriya Izuku. Nice to meet you, Yagi. And shook his hand. It's a pleasure to meet you for dash. Yagi's words were interrupted by blood coming out of his mouth as he began to cough. Izuku took steps, much more than necessary, backwards, putting a great distance between them. He looked at his clothes and was relieved to find that they were not stained with blood. Yagi, he asked in surprise, in a high-pitched voice, are you okay? Cautiously, he took small steps towards the man. Don't worry, this is normal for me dash. Normal? It's nothing you need to worry about. Are you dying? Izuku asked, then closed his mouth and berated himself. You can't just ask someone if they're dying. No, I assure you that I am not dying, Yagi said awkwardly. And I assure you that I am able to supervise your training. Sure. I mean, anyone recommended by All Might has to be amazing at this, and OMG, I still can't believe I'm training with someone who works for All Might. Do we feel like it? Shall we start then? Yagi asked, laughing. Izuku nodded excitedly. Then clean up the beach, Yagi ordered. Izuku's smile slowly disappeared, and he looked at Yagi blankly, blinking a few times before saying, I'm sorry. Izuku slumped backwards on the bed and let out a dull groan. His muscles were so sore that they burned, they ached, they hurt. And it was only day 1. Izuku didn't know if he would survive his karate class the next day. Ikari-sensei had said that it was about time for him to finally get his black belt, but with Izuku's sore muscles, he wasn't sure if he could pass. Izuku confronted a classmate she didn't talk to often. He had black hair and green eyes. He didn't even remember his name. He only knew that his gift was a slightly improved speed and couldn't be disabled. So I was at a clear disadvantage. Never mind. He would come out ahead, as he always does in the face of difficulties. The girl he was facing was a fellow brown belt who was fighting with him to get his black belt. Ikari-sensei had said that the winner of the bout would get a black belt and the loser would be stuck in the brown belt for at least another month. They bowed to each other and then began. Her opponent was so quick with her attack that she ducked under her arm at the last moment. Upon getting up, he parried a few punches before being overwhelmed and resorting to the usual block. Damn, he thought. It's too fast. But being defensive allowed her to analyze her opponent for a while and figure out things, like the way her left knee bent too much when she punched, and the way her foot almost floated above the ground at times when she leaned forward. And the look he saw in his eyes. She already thought she had won. Midoriya smiled when she saw her next blow coming. She had a pattern. Right, left, right. He saw the punch coming from a mile away and grabbed her arm as she stretched. He crouched underneath, but grabbed her to hold her, then kicked her in the back of her left knee and watched her stumble, but not fall to the ground as he expected. However, when he regained his balance and turned to face him, he was ready to attack. Now he was on the offensive. Now he had the advantage. No reservations. He kept going, throwing punches and kicks. He kicked her in the jaw and then slapped her on the feet. He always kept her on tenterhooks, making her movements unpredictable. Yes, he was unpredictable. But she was fast. He formed his hands as if grabbing imaginary tennis balls and lunged towards him. He dug his fingers into his biceps and turned the situation around. Then, with one of his hands, he tapped with the palm of his hand. Izuku was angry with himself for not seeing him coming. After all, it wasn't long ago that Sensei had taught them, attack the arm that attacks you. Izuku stumbled and she seized the advantage decisively, hitting him again, causing him to fall to the ground. Grabbing his arms, which were flailing, he pinned them against his side. "Do you give up?" he asked breathlessly. Izuku struggled against his grip, just growling. "Will I take it as a no?" He headbutted her, and she fell next to him. Immediately, they both got up again. She elbowed him in the abdomen, grabbing him by the center and watching him fall back to the ground. But he got up immediately. He kicked her in the chin, and she could already feel a bruise. She grabbed his leg and, panicked, he grabbed her jet black hair, desperate for something to hold on to stay on his feet. Pulling his hair, they both fell to the ground. They rolled for a while, and as they stopped, Izuku's body jerked backwards as the girl below tried to hit him in the chest, but he barely managed to dodge her attack. After that, however, he managed to beat him, and a lot. Striking his assailant in opposite directions, he could no longer maintain his composure, or at least not enough to fight back. So he quickly pulled away from her and put some space between them to have time to think. But she was fast, so what did I need time for? With a grimace, she lunged at him and he grabbed her fist. She kicked him in the groin and he let out a cry of pain. He looked straight ahead, ready to strike, but she wasn't there. He turned his head suddenly, but it was too late, for she had kicked him in the back and knocked him to the ground. After hitting him on the cheekbone and kicking him in the ankle, she sat on his back and pinned his arms behind him. "Okay, it's fine," Izuku gasped for air. "I give up." "I lied," Ikari said. "Before this battle I knew that they were both ready for the black belt. No matter the outcome, they would receive it. I was just curious how well they fought under pressure, and they both fought well. Yamamoto, you won, but don't get carried away by emotion, because I'm sure that if they fought 10 times, Midoriya would win 5. But you did well, and I'm proud of you. You too, Midoriya, did well. I'd like to know if you'll continue your lessons here." "Yes," Yamamoto Akane replied. "I plan to continue my training here, although I may have to reduce my sessions to once a week instead of 2, as I am moving into my 3rd year of high school." Izuku thought about it for a moment. He and his mother had had that conversation. Money was not an issue, but it was. Yes, Inko could afford the lessons, but that didn't mean she was obligated to. He could invest his money better now that Izuku had been attending these classes for long enough. Not to mention, Hisashi had stopped sending money. "I don't think so. I think I'm also going to leave Bojutsu and gymnastics. I have a very busy schedule." Izuku thought of his new schedule, which said he would clean the beach on odd-numbered days, run on Tuesdays, and practice his gift on Thursdays and Saturdays. "Well, I'll miss you very much, Midoriya," Ikari-sensei said. "But okay, I'll see you in a couple of years." Confusion was evident on Izuku's face. How? Where? In the ranking of heroes. Izuku pushed the refrigerator away, but it didn't move. It was the end of his first month, and he had already taken out all the small objects. Now it was time to move on to more important things. "I thought it was stronger than this," he growled. "Do not be discouraged, young Midoriya. You're making progress, and don't expect to wake up one day and be strong enough to magically lift a car," Yagi told him. Izuku was going to disagree, but was interrupted when Yagi reminded him of his second session, in which Izuku tried too hard and fainted. "It's okay to have limits, Midoriya. We all have limits, even me, All Might. The important thing is to overcome them, in good health," Yagi warned. Izuku nodded. Now, let's find some medium-sized things so you can move them, huh? Izuku nodded. 2 months in. Yagi, what type of diet should I follow? I've heard that there's no point in exercising if your diet isn't going well. So I need to eat healthy, right? Vegetables and salads. Not at all. You just need adequate caloric intake and, preferably, a balanced diet. But it's a myth that eating lots of fruits and vegetables makes you healthy and fit. Izuku put his pen on his chin while sitting in an oven, then scribbled a few words in his notebook labeled UA Exam Preparation. 3 months in. So your gift depends on your memory? Asked Yagi. Izuku nodded. I need to remember exactly what a person looks like, otherwise I can't copy their appearance or their quirk. But wouldn't it be hard to remember exactly what a person is like? Asked Yagi. It is, replied Izuku. The only people I can always remember well enough are my mother, All Might, and Katsuki. Can you copy All Might's quirk? Asked Yagi, puzzled. No, I tried, but it didn't work. I couldn't even feel his gift. But I copied his appearance, Izuku said. So if your gift depends on memory, how do you plan to fix it? Do you like memory games, or? It's very simple. Look, I have a pile of notebooks. Izuku pulled 5 out of his backpack. I used to save drawings of users, but now I take photos of them and paste them. So, as long as I have my notebook, I'll have access to its quirks. And what happens when you're in the middle of a villain's attack? You can't just pull out a notebook. I hadn't thought about it. I'm sure I'll eventually find a way around it. Izuku smiled brightly. By the 4th month, Izuku had already begun to notice changes. The first was the female attention she began to receive. Like that time he was in the library and a girl asked him for his number. The only other girl who had her number was Kami, so understandably, she panicked and scared her. The reason why he attracted female attention didn't make sense until Bakugo commented to him one day. Just because you have a couple of muscles and you've hooked up with a couple of girls doesn't mean you should give up. And what do you do training? Don't tell me that you train for the UA, damn Deku. Not to mention, Izuku had also grown up a bit. He was now 1.68 m tall instead of 1.65 m. Izuku used his back to push the refrigerator away. NnnngHh was the sound he made as he struggled to move the huge object. However, he managed to push the refrigerator along the beach to the truck that was going to take the garbage. But that also left him so exhausted, and therefore unfit for the rest of the session, that he resorted to theorizing about his own quirk. He even had an entire notebook dedicated to her. 5 months in. Izuku ran back and forth along the visibly clearer beach. It was not entirely clear. There was still a lot of trash, but it was clear enough that Izuku had a path to go up and down and go for a run or jog. But Izuku was so excited that he wasn't even running. He was jumping. The wind blowing through his green curls. The sun reflecting in their eyes, making them shine much brighter. The cold wind that lifted his shirt and whipped his ears. Calm. All Might. Izuku stammered when he noticed a large figure watching him. Yes, it's good to see you again, young Midoriya, Almighty said. What's wrong? Did something happen to Yagi? Izuku asked, or perhaps Yagi simply wasn't there. After all, the man had a life outside of Izuku and didn't always attend his trainings. No, I just wanted to see how long you've been there, Almighty lied. What he had really come to do was to reveal his secret, his wound, his gift. Tell the boy and give him his power, make him his successor. But Nightai was still pushing him on another boy, and All Might wasn't even sure if Izuku was ready yet. Oh well, I haven't done much dash. There's a difference between being modest and being insecure, Midoriya, Almighty said. You don't have to feel insecure, you are brave and strong. So be proud of yourself. And show me what you have. He showed his characteristic Almighty smile. Okay, Izuku said. Izuku first did a couple of demonstrations of his quirk. His first demonstration was simply to change his appearance to resemble All Might himself. Izuku's hair was blonde and his eyes blue. His second demonstration was that Izuku copied his mother's gift from memory. This time, his appearance didn't change much due to the uncanny resemblance between him and his mother, but he showed All Might the mild telekinesis that his mother possessed. His third demonstration was to copy Ikari-sensei's gift with a photo. This was accompanied by an explanation. Izuku could only use the previous version of Ikari's gift, as the photo was of a previous Ikari. This meant that if Ikari's gift was stronger now, Izuku wouldn't be able to access such power. His fourth demonstration was to do push-ups, and the fifth was to run as fast as he could. His sixth demonstration was sparring. Against all power. Are you sure this is prudent? I mean, it's an honor to train with you, All Might, but I could never beat you. Not even if you used half your power, Izuku said, looking at his feet. I don't expect you to beat me, boy. I just want to know how long you can hold on. All Might let out a laugh that should have sounded encouraging, but was actually intimidating. Oh, okay, Izuku said. Can I prepare first? Of course, Almighty thundered. In most cases, a hero has time to prepare before fighting. I'll give you 2 minutes. Only 2. I said heroes had time to prepare. I never said they had a lot of time. But what about cases that require detective work, investigating, finding the suspect, and discovering his gift instead of throwing himself into battle blindly? Asked Izuku. And what about the fights where you see a hero robbing the bank on the way home from the shops, and as a hero it's your duty to step in? It takes you more than 2 minutes to get ready, and the criminals have already escaped, All Might replied smugly. Izuku could see the sense in All Might's words, so he took his 2 minutes and used them wisely. Who are the best fighters I know? Izuku struggled. Bakugo approached, but then Izuku realized that his technique was never accurate. He was always stumbling around, screaming and blowing things up. He wasn't the kind of person Izuku wanted to embody, not right now. As if explosions could do something to All Might. The question was who would last the longest in a fight. And in a fight against All Might, if you're trying to survive, the obvious choice is to get defensive. Bakugo's peculiarity is not defensive. So Izuku looked at his phone and tried to memorize the photo in the 2 minutes he had. It was a photo he had taken on his last day in Tatakaisashai Karitsu, where he learned bojutsu, karate, and gymnastics. It was a photo of him with his 3 teachers behind him. Ikari was standing on the left and had a hand on Izuku's shoulder as he smiled at the camera. Kai was standing in the center behind Izuku and also had one hand on his shoulder, the other. He had a small smile. Rinchi was standing to Izuku's right and yelling at a child who was off the screen. He scanned the photo, memorizing every feature of each of his professors' faces, memorizing their clothes as well. And before he knew it, his time was up. Ready, young Midoriya? Asked All Might. Izuku looked at All Might and adopted a fighting stance. Her hair turned gray and her eyes brown. Activated Ikari's ability, Battle Stance. Battle Stance, the ability to have perfect form or posture when running, fighting, or just standing. You make the first move, Almighty said. Izuku didn't do anything. He knew it wasn't wise to take the first step. Normally, in a fight, one would take the first step to take the lead, but in a fight against All Might, how did you get the upper hand? Seeing that Izuku was doing nothing, All Might decided to act. He lunged at the boy. Izuku raised his arms in a cross, protecting his head, and dug his heels into the ground. Despite this, the green-haired man was thrown back by All Might's force and landed on a pile of trash. With a faint groan, Izuku immediately stood up. His hair changed from gray to his usual green, and his eyes changed from brown to green as well. His clothes also returned to their normal color. He didn't have time to imitate someone else because All Might had made another move, kicking Izuku. Izuku's back hit the pile of garbage from earlier and fell head-on. As All Might prepared his next move, Izuku's hair changed from green to silver and his eyes from emerald green to pink, courtesy of Kai Rinchi. His clothes also changed color to match the one Kai was wearing in the picture that Izuku had memorized. Then he activated his gift. Reflection. Although his gift did not provide him with an immediate and infinite understanding of someone's gift, Izuku was fortunate to know his senseis well enough to know how their gifts worked. Izuku hoped that learning to use the gifts of others would be just as easy in the future, but if it wasn't, at least his trusty notebook would help him. When All Might was about to put a foot on Izuku's back, the boy turned and grabbed him, preventing him from crushing him. But Izuku's strength was nothing compared to All Might's. All Might's foot kept pushing and Izuku felt his hands dig into his chest. ARRRGGHHH, shouted Izuku, trying to fight back. Luckily, Izuku's rallying cry caught All Might off guard, and the man stopped pushing for a moment. Izuku took the opportunity to roll and stand up. Her hair changed from silver to green and then to black, and her eyes from pink to green and then to turquoise. Now he imitated Ito, his gym instructor. He thought that reflection was very similar to Ito's gift, perfect timing. Only that perfect timing meant you still needed to know what you were doing to do it, but the reflex was more of an instinct. However, Izuku knew what he wanted to do. He wanted to counterattack, and the reflex was for the defense. The perfect timing was perfect for the offense. If Izuku wanted to survive, he couldn't defend himself forever. It would run out. The least he could do was slow down Almighty a little, though he suspected it was impossible. After all, the man still had that infuriating and inspiring smile on his face. Izuku attacked All Might, and once again, the man was surprised. I expected Izuku to stay on the defensive, which Izuku realized would have been the most logical thing to do after All Might caught his punch and used it to flip the boy behind his broad back. As Izuku was overturned, he jumped at the chance to land. He landed bending his knees as he had been taught, and then Izuku ran to the left. All Might tried to throw a punch, but Izuku pulled away with perfect accuracy. Izuku tried to run his foot down All Might's legs to trip him up, but it didn't work. The man was too heavy. Izuku dodged another punch and found himself behind All Might. He kicked him in the knees, and the man stumbled. When All Might turned around, he received an explosion in the face. And when the dust cleared, there was no sign of the green-haired boy. But there was a blonde-haired boy approaching from behind him, trying to be stealthy. All Might turned sharply and saw Izuku sneaking up on him, blonde hair and red eyes. Izuku threw a punch and ignited his fist as he did so. All its power rushed upon him to grab him, but he was met with an explosion. Immediately, All Might had to let go of his fist due to the explosion. And then, Izuku regained his original appearance. But not for long, because he had an ace up his sleeve, something he had been working on during training where Yagi was not present because he wanted to surprise him. Izuku had been memorizing a certain hero. With Izuku's training, he soon realized that he could only imitate people he had met before, which obviously limited him. But then he remembered that fateful day, the day All Might offered him to train, the day he realized his dreams could come true, the day he saved Kakin. And he told a lot of heroes, including MT Lady. Her hair turned blonde, her eyes pink, and her clothes changed. Instead of his white shirt with the word T-shirt and his black shorts, Izuku wore a purple shirt with orange and cream shorts trimmed. And then Izuku grew up. He literally grew up, fuck. His body increased in size and soon surpassed All Might and the houses. Izuku knew it was risky, for several reasons. The first was that being at that height could get him in trouble for using his gift illegally, since it was hard not to see a giant boy when looking out the window. If he was caught, he would be in serious trouble. And the second, Izuku's gift, like that of most, was tied to his endurance. This meant that his gift would only last as long as he did. And using a gift as powerful as MT Lady's was bound to take its toll. The moment Izuku grew up, he shrank again, and his 1.68 body fell to the ground. Her hair, like her eyes, turned green again, and her clothes regained their natural color. The only difference in his appearance was his paler face. He had fainted. "Is it true, Mommy?" he whispered. "I'm so sorry, Izuku," he replied. Izuku watched the scene unfold and thought, "Mom, that's not what I needed to hear." And then the scene changed, but once again all the faces were blurred and he could barely make out anything, as if they were just blurred memories, and even so, he still remembered them vividly. I could only see a pond and two children inside, one sitting on his butt and the other with his hand outstretched. I couldn't make out the faces, but it was a situation I knew very well. He wanted to intervene, telling Casey Katsuki that she wasn't belittling him, that she was just trying to help. But he found himself unable to speak. And when I tried to grab things, I just went through them like a ghost, like I wasn't really there, like nothing was real. The little green-haired boy held out his hand to the blonde boy, who slapped him away. And then there was an explosion and Izuku realized that the scene had changed, again. And there was her little 5-year-old body, lying on the ground with burn marks. Izuku now understood that they were only memories. Not only were they memories, but they were also a dream. Otherwise, it wouldn't make sense for her to experience her own memories in the third person. The blonde boy who had caused the explosion began to walk away, spitting. Useless. DKU. Stop despairing me. The scene had changed once again, and now Bakugo stood right in front of a past Izuku, with mud filling his mouth. But this time there were no blurred faces. Everything was extremely clear. Stop exploding all over the place. Kaken, you need to target their weak spots. But it wasn't the Izuku of the past who shouted this, but the real one, or as real as a dream can be. He had screamed. He no longer observed himself. I was experiencing this, reliving it, standing in front of Bakugo, ready to discover his new gift for the first time. But then Izuku fell to his knees. What was he doing? Surrender? He had to save Bakugo. He could not fall to his knees like a pathetic coward. Your gift does not determine who you are. It cannot make you useless, or powerful, or good or bad. What matters is what you do with it. Your gift cannot determine whether you can be a hero or not. It is up to you to determine it. Even in his dreams, he was stunned by All Might's presence, as he looked up with teary eyes. Are you saying that I can also become a hero? He asked. No, you can't become a hero, because you're already a Midoriya. Midoriya. Izuku looked at All Might, confused by his strange behavior. Why did he keep repeating his name? Midoriya. Slowly, All Might began to disappear from his vision. Midoriya. All Might, he yelled. Where are you? Izuku could only see black as he heard his name for the umpteenth time. Midoriya. Izuku half opened one eye, but instead of seeing All Might, he saw Yagi with blurred vision, partly because of the fatigue band and partly because she had been crying in her sleep. All Might had business to attend to, Yagi thought. So he called me and asked me to make sure you were okay. He said you fainted after copying. MT lady, he thinks. Izuku's eyes drifted to the side as he tried to remember what had happened before he fell asleep, passed out, on the beach in front of All Might. Did All Might see me pass out? What a shame, Izuku said, rubbing his wet eyes and waving his arms animatedly. That's what you're worried about? Yagi asked in an expressionless tone. Izuku blushed with embarrassment. Well, yes, it's the second time I've fainted in front of the #1 hero. It's humiliating. Really? From what I've heard, the first time you fainted in front of All Might was after you managed to save yourself alive from the mud villain. It wasn't me at all. All Might kept me alive, Izuku said, dejected. Either way, you're strong for having gone through that and coming out alive. There's nothing humiliating about being a survivor. And the second time you fainted was after an extreme show of power. Even though you should have known it was dangerous, it was still impressive, Yagi said. Izuku smiled again. Thank you, Yagi, then got up and headed to a pile of garbage. There's still about half an hour of training left, so I could dash. Wow. No, Yagi said, tugging Midoriya's sleeve back. You just fainted. That means there will be no more training for today. I promise I won't try too hard this time. Izuku replied. Almost every month, there's at least one session where you try too hard. Your mother must be worried about the number of injuries you return home with. Nothing I'm not used to, Izuku muttered, remembering the time she had fought with Katsuki. What was that? Asked Yagi, not listening to Izuku's murmurs. Oh, nothing, Izuku said, waving his arms frantically. Yagi simply raised an eyebrow but let the topic pass, seemingly accustomed to Izuku's antics. Okay, you're going home now, Yagi said. Izuku nodded. You're going to get some rest, Yagi said. Izuku nodded. And by rest I mean getting a good night's sleep. 10 full hours, Yagi continued. Izuku nodded again. And you won't be able to come to training tomorrow, Yagi said. What? Izuku shouted. Why not? You need to take a break, young Midoriya. Consider it a day off, perhaps, Yagi said with a smile. Although Izuku was already in doubt, he wants to get rid of me. He's fed up with me and doesn't want to train me anymore. He gave up and finally realized that I'm not good enough. None of that is true, young Midoriya, Yagi said. And I suggest you control those murmurs. There's nothing wrong with it, it's quite endearing. However, in the middle of a battle against a villain, you wouldn't want your opponent to know what you're thinking, huh? Izuku nodded, with a blush on his face from having muttered loudly and embarrassed himself. Yes, Mr. Yagi. Now remember what I told you. Rest a little and don't come to training tomorrow, Yagi reminded him. Promise me you will. I promise that I will rest and not attend training tomorrow, Izuku nodded. Izuku, in fact, wasn't resting. He was scribbling in his notebook, thinking so fast that his hand couldn't keep up with it, and as such, his handwriting came out in a messy doodle. There are definitely gaps between the time it takes to change people. Before I can reflect another person, I must first return to myself. I can't change immediately, but is there a way around it? How fast can I shift right now? He murmured as he jotted down his thoughts. He continued to theorize about their peculiarity and plan experiments that he would do with them. I promise I'll rest tomorrow, he said. I promise I won't go to training tomorrow, he said. And yet, there it was, crawling to the beach. As the smart boy that he was, he thought that since Yagi expected him to be home, Yagi wouldn't show up on the beach, which meant that Yagi would never have to find out that Izuku had trained today. Except, in these 5 months, Yagi had gotten to know Izuku all too well. The boy was a worker, inspiring, bright, smart, affectionate, resistant, stubborn, incredibly stubborn, and I had no sense of security. He literally didn't care about his health at all. And it was worrying. Knowing this, Yagi sat on the beach and waited for the familiar green-haired head to arrive. That's how Izuku came face to face. Well, not really, since Izuku is only 1.68 m tall.